You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This podcast episode is brought to you by Lonsdale Publishing. Is your program seeking ways to assess your students' college readiness? Does your program need a tool to document the effectiveness of your program? Lonsdale Publishing is excited to offer the Strategic Learning Assessment, a 20-minute online assessment that provides recommendations and strategies to improve academic performance across 11 learning areas: communication, critical thinking, effective learning strategies, focus and concentration, growth mindset, persistence, seeking help, sense of belonging, stress management, test preparation, and time management. For as little as $3 per student, the Strategic Learning Assessment identifies strengths and areas for growth, along with tailored recommendations for each learning area. Want a complimentary sample account for yourself and 5 students? Contact Lonsdale Publishing at 727-389-8026. Again, that number is 727-389-8026. Or visit our website for more information at www.lonsdale.com. That website again is www.lonsdale.com. Lonsdale Publishing, your partner in student success. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Trio. This is Season 7, Episode 19. I am your host, Juan Rivas. Before we begin, some community announcements. Trio Nation, be sure to call your congressional representatives to defend the TRIO programs. The Trump administration is seeking to eliminate the TRIO programs in their most recent proposed budget. Take action now by spreading the word and contacting your congressional representatives. Let them know that TRIO works. We included a link to find your congressional representatives in the podcast description. North Carolina Central University is hosting their annual Student Access and Success Conference in 2026. Click on the link located on the episode description to learn more. In today's episode, we have Reinalyn Echon, advisor for the TRIO Student Support Services Program at Idaho State University. Reinalyn is on the podcast to share her own life experience, navigating the college experience as a first-generation student, and finding her professional path in TRIO. Coming up in just a bit, Reinalyn Echon. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Villalpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Laputi, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lemaster, Jeff Calden, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and TheTrioStore.com, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. If you own a business that serves the Trio community and want to sponsor the podcast, we have different sponsorship packages available. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. Your support helps lift Trio voices. If you would like to nominate a participant, alumni, staff, or advocate to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Reinalyn Echon, advisor for the Trio Student Support Services program at Idaho State University. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast is an advisor for the Trio Student Support Services program at Idaho State University. She graduated from California State University in Fullerton with a bachelor's degree in psychology and obtained her master's in experimental psychology from Idaho State University. She enjoys working with first-generation students to achieve their maximum potential. When she is not busy at work, my guest enjoys Legos, archery, woodworking, and all things nerdy and nerd. I am honored to welcome to this podcast Reinalyn Echon.
Nice to be here, Juan.
I am so excited to have you on the podcast, Reinalyn. It's been something that we've been meaning to do. I think we were talking pre-show about, like, you were always at the top of my mind, and I kept forgetting to schedule you.
Yeah, because we met in Colorado, like, what, 2022?
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Has it really been 3 years?
It's been 3 years.
So I keep saying it was like last summer.
That's what it feels like.
It really does.
Because so when I asked, like, initially we said, yeah, we should have you on the podcast soon. That was 3 years ago, and that's on me. Because,
yeah. I mean, soon, right? Like
soon. I mean, it happened now.
Time is a construct.
So this is the exact reason why I'm excited to have you on this podcast. You have a lot of great experience, and I think the audience is going to enjoy just hearing from you. So again, thank you for agreeing to do this podcast session, even though our definition of soon is now.
I mean, yeah. I mean, again, time is a construct. Nothing is real. Love talking about Trio.
Right on. So how are things in Idaho?
Idaho is good. It's pretty hot. It started getting weirdly muggy, which is unusual for us because we're a high desert. But yeah, otherwise, generally just kind of going.
Okay. Now, when I think of Idaho, I typically think like potatoes, obviously, and a very dry climate. So it surprised me when you said muggy. And you all have very cold temperatures out there, right?
Yeah, so not nearly as cold as Colorado. But yeah, we do get kind of cold. Luckily, we haven't had like a snowmageddon in a few years. So
also you do get those.
Usually pretty mild.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I know that Idaho is a very underrated state, only because it's only known for potatoes or whatever, right? But what is something folks don't know about Idaho? What would you share with them?
I'm going to keep going with the potato thing only because, like, there is a reason why the potatoes are famous for Idaho. And it's not just because it's one of the largest crops that are grown. Technically, the largest crop grown in Idaho is sugar beets. Really? And then second largest is potatoes. But we export frozen potatoes more than anything else other than, like, electronics, weirdly enough. The reason, so like license plates, they have like a little slogan at the bottom, and it's not necessarily like the motto. Because like, what's Colorado's again? It's
Oh shoot, we're the something state. Oh, I should know this. I'm from Colorado. Hold on. Colorado motto. What are we? Colorado motto.
Because like the license plate isn't necessarily the motto. So like I know Florida's is actually uh
The
Sunshine
Sunshine State?
State.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those like slogans of like touristy slogans are actually from Idaho. So
What?
the state like transportation department head essentially was like there has to be a way to use these license plates for marketing purposes because this is like about the 50s and the 50s is when highways started connecting all of America, right? So that's you get Route 66 that actually goes from like California all the way across the country
Right.
and you start getting more of people like vacationing and that's where you get all of your like weird roadside attractions like the
Right.
largest ball of twine.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
so to
yeah.
capitalize on this, the Idaho State Department head was like, there has to be a way for us to market to come to Idaho. And so
Interesting.
he put on the license plates famous potatoes because people were like
Really?
super into weird roadside things. And so
Oh,
he started putting
interesting.
famous potatoes on it. Other
Uh-huh.
states started kind of picking up, like, oh, this is also a good marketing strategy for tourism, and then started putting
How?
slogans. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That
Idaho
is
is why.
well, thanks a lot, Idaho. I
Yeah.
mean, you brought us the
And then
slogans. I love
we're
that,
never
though.
gonna get rid of the whole potato thing. Like it's
That is not.
permanently on the license plates.
Well, I had to look it up. Ours is nothing without providence or deity. Don't know what that means
Oh wow,
exactly.
that's really long
I'm sure we have another one.
for a license plate. That's so long.
So Colorado, come to life is ours.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
That is a
Much shorter and
yes.
easier to put on a license plate.
There's so many. Oh my God, that's just interesting. I had to look it up, and there's a lot. You're right. They're very
Uh-huh.
short, very touristy.
Yeah.
Like come and see,
Come
like a
and
land
see
of
us.
enchantment.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Exactly.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Idaho. I mean, both thank. It's a really genuine thank you, and like, oh my gosh, I really didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, the original license plate that had the slogan also had a big potato that like surrounded the numbers and letters.
Oh wow. So
Yeah, so
wow.
you can look it up. Like gigantic potato plate.
I love that we started with slogans of the states or the slogan of Idaho and really just kind of stayed there for a bit. So now we got to get to nerd out a little bit because so at the intro of the podcast we talked a little bit about your interest. So archery, you and I have the same common interest in archery. I love archery.
Oh
There's
yeah.
something soothing about that.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
me it's meditative. Like
oh yeah,
I
yeah.
hate meditation because I cannot sit still long enough. So
Mm,
that's also how I like got into woodworking and so I do hand tool woodworking. So you're
uh-huh.
working with like an antique plane and you
Mm,
have to move everything yourself and it's the same repetitive motion and for me that's what archery is too. You look at a target, you concentrate on your body mechanics, your breathing especially, and then you let go, which is something I cannot do in my life at all is letting things go.
Let go. I love that. Especially as in the theme of archery is like
Yeah.
being able to just be confident to let the arrow go.
Yeah.
That act itself like
And
must be freeing for you.
oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I have a prior guest of yours to thank, Dr. James Pascali. So when we were both graduate students and both of us were ABD or all but dissertation. So we had finished classes, all we needed to do was finish our projects. We had hit that slump of oh, this project is never going to finish. And he had convinced me to take up archery with him
Ooh.
and invited a few other grad students. And he was like, this will be a really stress relieving activity. And I didn't believe him. But I'd always had an interest in archery. And he was like, I have an extra bow. You can borrow it for the day. There's this, well, I'll take you up to out in the backwoods
That
where
sounds dangerous already.
he's like, just follow the signs. It will make no sense, but you're going to go up the hills, and then there's going to be an archery range. And so I followed him up there and did archery, really glommed onto it. And then he started making fun of me because I started turning into an RPG character where every single time he showed up at the archery range with me, I had a new bow or new like accoutrements because
So
I
you got
really
so
took
into
to
it.
it. Yeah, I got sucked into it. That's how I am with any
Wow.
hobby. I go full in.
That
There's
is
no half
awesome.
measures with me.
I love that. So you have a variety of interests with working, woodworking, archery. I really picked up on your like Marvel and comic books
Yes.
because that's where I'm at. Did you see the latest Fantastic Four movie, like the
I
latest MCU?
have not yet, but I've heard really
No
great
spoilers.
things
Okay,
and it looks amazing.
it is great.
Um, I mean, it's so great to finally have something where the Marvel's first family actually gets to shine, and it isn't like
I
a weird
totally agree.
not that I did not enjoy the ones with Jessica Alba. The first one, the first Fantastic Four, uh, th- pretty solid. Let's to be
It was
fair,
good,
like it
right?
was
Yeah,
pretty good.
for the
Like
time, for the time.
for the time. The storytelling isn't very complex. And then the second one with Silver Surfer, they did not do Silver Surfer
Oh no, yeah, it felt like the
any
quality dipped.
favors. Like, oh, and Silver Surfer is awesome.
Yes, fantastic character. I will say no spoilers, but you've seen the previews where
Oh
Silver
yeah,
Surfer does make an experience
yes.
an appearance for this latest one. Absolutely does justice to
Oh,
the
perfect.
Silver Surfer. So absolutely. Um, as far as comic book stuff, is there a particular hero or group of superheroes that you really admire or you really follow?
I was really in love with Matt Fraction's and David Aja's run of Hawkeye, which is the inspiration for the Hawkeye
Oh,
TV show. So
yeah.
I collected all of those comics and in fact got Matt Fraction to sign one of my comic books. He was at he and his wife, Kelly Sue DeConnick, happened to be um at a comic book store that was close-ish to my undergrad.
Mhm.
So I drove the 40 minutes.
Oh
uh
wow.
yeah, because it was like by Knott's Berry Farm or something.
Oh wow.
And so I drove the 40 minutes to stand in line
Uh-huh.
and meet these two who
Wow.
wrote like two of my favorite characters. So Hawkeye is amazing because it's Matt Fraction's run is basically that day in the life of a superhero when he's not being a superhero.
Hmm, hmm.
And so he's such a loser, but he's doing his best. And that's those are the kinds of stories that I enjoy is that like anyone can be a hero. You just have to do what is right.
Yeah.
And stand up for what you believe in. No matter how hard it is, which is probably why I ended up in trio.
I think that right, like the community in Trio is very much the believers of the underdog, believers
Yeah,
in defending the folks who really may not have a clear path forward, or don't know where to go next, and
yeah.
definitely need that someone to advocate for them. So absolutely, you're an absolute superhero, Reinalyn.
Oh, thanks. You too, Juan.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. So you're from California,
Yeah.
which California vibes you give off. Very chill, very like you get along with people. But it is quite a leap to go from California to Idaho.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that transition from California to Idaho happened?
Yeah, so transitions to places you've never been before kind of run in the family. So my family's originally from the Philippines. My dad immigrated when he was 16, 17 with his parents, my grandparents, and they didn't know anything. So
Mm, hmm.
so they have stories of like feeling so lucky that when they, purchased things at the Kmart and they didn't know how like change worked
Oh,
because it's a
yeah,
whole new currency that they're unfamiliar with, right?
absolutely.
Like you could read the numbers, but that doesn't really mean anything for like, okay, is the big one the 25 cent or like of
Right?
course like our
Okay.
our currency is kind of weird, right? The penny's a certain size, but the dime is smaller, but the dime actually is more money than the
Dude,
penny.
you're adding layers to this like I never really thought about. It's
Yeah.
like so we have the currency in dollars and the
Hmm.
change, all
Yeah.
different sizes. So that could definitely
Yeah.
confuse a
And so
person.
they didn't know any different, right? So they've told stories of going to the Kmart, just kind of putting money down and just hoping the cashier could figure it out and would tell them like, okay, you're a little
Oh
short on a
no.
couple of these, and
Yeah.
they'll just kind of like put the change in their hand and just kind of expect the cashier to figure it
They're
out
like, hey, just
because they
get
don't
what you
know.
need from here.
Yeah, just figure it out. Just figure it out. We don't know.
Wow.
And that that they that they wouldn't know if the cashier was just taking money from them.
Mm.
But for the most part, people were fairly honest, which is kind of wild when you consider that they were deep in downtown LA
Wow.
when they first immigrated. So it's interesting. And so that's kind of where some of my like bravery about just kind of moving to places unknown comes from, is that that's my family. And technically speaking, I didn't know this until much later, but technically speaking, English isn't my first language. It's
Really?
Tagalog, which
Oh,
is
okay.
generally speaking uh, technically known as the language of the Philippines, but there's
Hmm.
also like 185 different dialects. So
Wow.
technically it's Filipino, but Filipino is mostly Tagalog with some English stuff in it.
Wow.
So some
So,
some weird, interesting, like what is the official language of the Philippines?
right. Oh my God. So you really learned one language first to obviously
Yeah,
to communicate with mom and dad,
yeah.
to your grandparents,
Mhm.
to your family, and then English kind of came second. Like,
Yes. So the reason I found this out was I was doing some paper or something for high school, and then my parents were like, "Yeah, the English teachers or the teachers in kindergarten were super convinced that you were kind of stupid
oh
because you
my
didn't speak
God.
English, and they
Yeah.
told us that we needed to speak more English with you." And I was
Yeah.
like, "What?" Because
Oh
at
my
this
God.
point I was in honors English
Oh,
in high school,
yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
like, "What do you mean?" and, and they were like, yeah, we just kind of spoke a little bit more English to you and then had you watch TV. And it was like, oh, okay. So, anyways, this is my pitch for the importance of PBS because that's how I learned English.
100%. Oh my God. You and I have a similar experience in elementary school then because so technically, Spanish is my first language. It's
Yeah.
the region where my parents are from Mexico, and they came up here. They were in LA, and they put me very same experience that I had was like the teachers assumed I was stupid. They put
Yeah.
me in like ESL and all these other. I was like, oh my, like I
Yeah.
learning English, and
Weirdly,
then later,
my school didn't have an ESL section because it was a
what?
Montessori
No way.
school. So you just were in one classroom together.
Oh
That's the
my
only reason I
gosh.
wasn't in an ESL class.
I okay, so then our experiences diverged a little because
Yeah.
yeah, I was placed in an ESL class for from elementary all the way to middle school. I had to test out in middle school. Like that's when they finally tested like, "Oh,
That's
are you
when they finally
proficient?"
figured that
Yeah.
out.
Like, are you proficient in English? We're going to test you. And that's when I was able to demonstrate like, "Oh yeah, I know English. I don't need these classes
Yeah.
anymore."
That's such a long time.
It is. Oh, it was
How did they never notice?
because they and this is not a knock on the public education
Mhm.
school system. It's just the funding, right, of like
Right.
being able to assess our students that are either Spanish speakers or speak
Hmm.
different languages, and the assessment that goes with it, and the assumptions
Yeah.
that they make. Right, I was swept under the
Yes.
rug a lot, and because
Yeah.
we moved around a lot, so
Oh,
they were
yeah.
like,
So that'll
oh, this.
complicate it too.
Yes, 100%. So it was a lot of like, oh, this kid is ESL. Just put him in the ESL classes.
Right.
And then I remember my mom had to advocate. She's like, no, this guy knows English. You guys just haven't tested him yet. And so it took until middle school for them to figure it out to test me. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
very
mine
weird.
mine was very funny because what happened was obviously there wasn't an ESL section, so they just were like, your kid's got to learn English. And like no one's it's
Wow.
like your kid
Yeah.
doesn't communicate in English. And then so it somehow got to the point where I just picked up English so fast that I ended up skipping like first grade.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I skipped a grade super early on because they were like, oh, the kid actually, once we figured out she knows English. is actually pretty smart.
Which actually, this is like a wonderful segue to the next question is like, how would your family describe you?
Oh, my family describes me as exceedingly book smart, but not street smart. Because I'll be like trying. So as much as I do like woodworking and like building furniture and like all these other things that are kind of complex,
Yeah.
my family will always make fun of me for just like kind of not being able to do simple things.
Oh.
Like so like, they'll be like, oh yeah, just move this thing over, whatever, whatever. I'm like, what do you mean? Like that's not a clear enough instruction. And they're like, you just move it. It's just put it to anywhere that is a free space. And I'm like, but tell me exactly what you want. And they're like, how do you function in school and I'm like, school has directions.
Reinalyn, I was going to interject and tell you that is such a smart person response to say, tell me what to do. What is
Tell
it
me
that you want from me?
exactly what the steps are. This is why I like Legos. They tell you exactly what you need to do.
And a
There's
lot of the tasks,
instructions.
academically, right? A lot of the tasks come like with inherent instructions so you know what to do.
Correct.
And some of the other tasks are like, here's what you need to do next. So I absolutely
Yeah.
understand like having
Yeah,
that
yeah.
list.
The only times I got lost in school was when they're like, so anyways, just write a paper. And I'm like, about what? What exactly? Like, are there references? What am I doing?
Wow. Okay. So you're functioning at I feel what I would call, I don't know if you've watched the Big Bang Theory. You're
Yes,
functioning at a Sheldon level where
100%.
the other stuff that doesn't need to be thought about as much doesn't
Oh
get
yeah.
a lot of thought.
Yeah, no, 100%. So there's that story of Einstein and how like people asked him like how are you able to think about these really complex like things in physics?
Mhm.
And he goes, well, I just don't spend all of the time like making decisions about small stuff. Like he wore the same suit every day. He just
Yeah.
had the
Oh,
same
wow.
suit
Didn't have to think about
every
like
day.
style.
He just bought the same thing like 10 times. And I'm like, that is so relatable because I for a significant amount of time in my elementary school, I moved from Montessori school to a private Christian school because the Catholic school was too expensive for us. So all
Oof,
the
yeah.
Catholics sent their kids
Oh
to
my God.
this one if we couldn't afford it. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and my family's Catholic. So that it's because it's a private school, there was a uniform. And I was the happiest because you just wore the same thing
Yeah.
every day. There's just like three different colors. And then I went to public school for high school,
Yep.
and I was like, oh no, I don't know how the kids dress these days. What are the rules?
I like how your comfort area is what are the rules? What is the least? What is
I I very much am like rules that feel arbitrary to me, I very much chafe against and will just push all the way to the edge. But rules that I'm just like, okay, that makes sense. Then I'm just like, neat, a boundary upon which to work with.
absolutely?
And then I will push that boundary as far as possible.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you seeking guidance to enhance your TRIO project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. Nosotros Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your TRIO project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for TRIO projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined TRIO experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, development of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and TRIO projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. Nosotros Education Center, your partner in TRIO's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotrosedu.org.
And now, back to the podcast.
That is awesome. So now I'm really looking forward to this question because it's almost an arbitrary question that you asked. Like, okay, my childhood experience was like, mom and dad would typically ask us every year, like, so what do you want to be when you grow up? As we were aging, we didn't have like a real frame of reference. So my brothers would answer like, oh, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be
Yeah.
a police officer. I remember clearly like, oh, I really can be anything. I want to be a radio DJ, Dad. I really like. I would tell my dad like I want to be a radio DJ. So I'm curious. Do you remember what you wanted to be growing up? Like without a frame of reference,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had the same thing. Like, what is the frame of reference? Because, like, what are the possibilities? And these are the things that I also talk with my students about is that you don't actually have a real frame of reference of what the possibilities are for careers because you only
Also
know the
true.
major ones.
Yeah.
And so my parents, or specifically my dad, would be like, so here's your career options, like lawyer, doctor, dentist.
Oh wow! Like from
Yeah.
the jump was
Yeah.
like, this is where you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
go.
it was just like, so anyways, you should probably aim for these. It's like, okay. And I was like, neat. And then once I kind of like figured out that there were more career options in those three,
Mhm.
I was like, the thing that I want to do the most is be an author because I loved reading, right? So
Ooh,
like I spent a
yeah.
lot of days in the library. And so I read a lot of stories and I was like, wow, this must be so fun, right? To be able to take the things from your brain, put it on paper, have other people enjoy them.
Mhm.
And up until we actually did like creative writing things in school, and I legitimately was just like recapping things that I had read. So, so it was like terrible fan fiction, like self-insert. Like it was just really bad. And then figured out I was good at writing, but not creative writing.
Oh,
Uh,
gotcha. Now I gotta ask because creative writing also has some arbitrary rules to it.
oh yeah,
So for
that's
you, did
probably
that
why I hated it.
was it?
What are the boundaries?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes and that's putting the picture into focus for me, in your early upbringing because I could see you like getting frustrated or even feeling confident that you're like, I did a good thing,
Oh yeah.
and then feeling later on like, oh no, this is not what I
Yeah.
intended to do.
Yeah, I do a lot of things in life with a lot of like unearned confidence, which is also something I get from my family. Which again, like the boldness of moving to a new country, not knowing anything, like, yeah, you're gonna just have a trait of unearned confidence.
So now I'm really gonna have us reflect on your early childhood because uh, I'm curious, like, what do you remember most about your early education? How would you describe going through elementary and middle school for you?
Yeah, elementary and middle school was a lot of like trying to figure things out because
Hmm.
I definitely prided myself on my intelligence because I had gotten rewarded enough times for like being the smart kid in class and I was always in silent competition with the other kids in class to get the highest grade. And sometimes it
Oh.
wasn't silent because we were just straight up like comparing tests. And the thing was, this is the unearned confidence. I was always in these competitions in my own head or
Mm.
actually, but I
Hmm.
was never the one who had the top score.
Mm.
But I kept doing it. I just kept being like, this is going to be the day. This is going to be the day that I'm going to get the highest grade. And then that's still the mentality that I had up until like college.
Wow.
This is going to
So,
be the day that I'm going to have the top grade. Never did. I would get high scores, yes, but I would
yeah.
never have the top grade. But for some
Wow.
reason, that just never slapped me in the face up until graduate school when I was like, why am I doing this?
I think you do a lot of growing during graduate school. You do a lot of self-analysis, right? I'm
Yes.
like, why do I do this?
Why am I like this? And then the other main thing that I remember from middle school was I was part no, I was not very popular in school. Weird.
I refuse to believe that, but okay.
So it was literally me and my best friend in middle school. We called ourselves the losers.
Aw. Aw.
So like the like loving underdog stories has
Oh,
been
oh, for
like a
sure.
thing since childhood.
Yeah.
'Cause like we highly identified with like the outsiders and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And and like the X-Men. And we sat in a corner by ourselves and just kind of watched things, kind of just like made up stories and just like interacted. And my middle school best friend was very secure in her identity, and I was
Mm.
not.
Hmm.
I kept trying to like make it in some way, right?
Sure.
To actually like be popular. And but my best friend Allie did not give a about anyone else's opinion. Sorry about the cursing. You can bleep that out.
Now we're gonna have to do
But
first ever R rating on this, Reinalyn.
but Allie did not care at all what anyone else's opinion of her was. She was gonna like the things that she liked. And that's it.
Mhm.
And that was so formative for me. Because this is where the nerddom comes from. Is she's the one who introduced me to Lord of the Rings
Ooh.
and was like, "Hey, this Lord of the Rings movie is coming out. Do you want to watch it?" And I was like, "I've never heard of this." And so I watched the movie with her, and it was a transformative experience. I was like,
Yeah.
"This is amazing. Like nerd stuff is cool." And then we fast forward to like all I do now and talk about is Dungeons and Dragons and board games and the like sci-fi lore.
That is awesome. You sound, I honestly, you sound like a ton of fun. I'd be like, oh, just nerding out with you. That'd be
Oh yeah,
awesome.
I'm a ton of fun now that I like have accepted the nerddom, which I didn't really get comfortable with until probably junior year of high school.
Mm,
Yeah, from middle school on, I was still trying to figure it out,
yeah,
and especially like moving to a new school in high school, trying to like recreate myself, and it was all facades up until I finally accepted it.
gotcha. Speaking of high school, can you talk about that transition into high school and what do you remember most about this time?
Yeah, so my parents moved. I make it sound like it was just my parents. My 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 parents and I, as a function of being a child, also moved to a
Right.
different city,
Uh-huh.
my seventh grade. And there was a lot of talk of putting me into the public school of the new city that we moved to.
Hmm.
And I was super upset by this because my school went up to eighth grade. And I was like, I'm gonna miss the eighth grade trip where you go to DC and all my friends and blah 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 blah. I was like, I'm super upset by this. And luckily, my parents were like, all right, well, think about your feelings, but you're kind of right. Like, why would we move you from this school when you're gonna graduate and then have to start over at a new high school anyways?
Mm.
So
Hmm.
so they're like, sure, you can finish out school and we'll continue paying for this private school for another year and pay for the DC trip so you actually get to go on a field trip instead of like stay at school while everyone else is having fun
Yeah.
like you've done for the last like 8 years.
Oh,
Because you also can't
yeah.
skip school.
Right. Right.
And so Um, moving to high school though, that also meant that that first day of high school, I knew nobody.
Mm.
And like the night before I was practicing how to introduce myself to people.
Oh, like
Like,
you were like honestly, genuinely
oh, I
practicing.
was
I'm like, I'm
genuinely
going to,
like, I
wow.
gotta figure out how to make friends. What is the formula for making friends? Like, there's like, it was such a shock to me. Like, there's no uniform. I have no friends. Like, what do I
Oh,
do?
every comfort area that you could run
Yeah,
to is gone.
it's
It's just, it's
gone.
gone.
It's gone.
Wow.
Everything is brand new and I have to start over. So the thing I remember the most is the first day. And mind you, like nowadays, I'm like super personable, really talkative, and just unashamed to be myself,
Mhm,
which is
mhm.
not me most of my young life. So I was always described as shy
Mm.
by teachers, by family members. Like I just didn't talk to people. I was super shy. And that's why I like glommed onto books. Like books didn't expect anything of me.
Right. It was you do the action and
Correct.
you get
Like,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then like I watched movies and TV shows and then that's how I kind of like pieced together how like human interaction works because I was also an only child. So there really wasn't anyone else I was interacting with other than adults. So
Wow. Okay.
so
Yeah.
I spoke very like adult like,
Hmm.
which is also feeding into teachers' perceptions of me as like, oh, you're a smart kid.
Hmm.
And I was super bookish.
Hmm.
So I read books that were above my reading level, which taught me more stuff and made connections that way. And but that first day, the thing I remember most about that first day was finding a corner to eat lunch by myself and just eating a muffin
Oh.
sadly by myself while I was
Oh.
crying about being lonely.
Oh.
And then because I hated that experience, I practiced. Okay, how are you going to introduce yourself? Like, who do you find? Like, the movies have told me if I find this kind of group of people, maybe I can get into the cool kids club because nobody knows me.
Gotcha. Okay. So you
It
were
did
like
not work out that way. But eventually, like I just kind of kept introducing myself to people who seemed kind of friendly. And then some of those friend groups, I was like, oh, I made a mistake. Oh no.
was it like a realization of like this doesn't gel?
Oh, 100%, almost immediately. That
Okay,
I didn't
okay,
know how to back
fair,
out of it because I
fair.
didn't practice that. I was like, oh no, I never conceptualized failure because of the unearned confidence. This wasn't in my formula. And eventually, after just like spending lunches with different groups of friends and different groups of people, trying like essentially trying to figure out like who are the people I want to be with. Because
Mhm,
there's the people I want to be with for like cool kid points, but then there's also the people that I actually would get along with, right? And I
mm, mhm,
started realizing that first year of high school that these are two different things. And um and that's kind of what led to my growth of like I just gotta accept who I am and that I'm going to be interested in English literature and that I'm going to be interested in history. And it doesn't matter that students don't necessarily find those fun, but I do.
mhm.
Because eventually I found a group of friends who had kind of similar-ish life experiences. Some of them were Filipino, which is like, you know, I don't really run into a lot of those, even though we're in California. Uh, like, and I'm like, oh wow, and also Filipino in that like first generation sense, right?
Mm,
Their parents had immigrated, they're kind of getting acculturized with America, and but they still have like a foot in both spaces. And I
mhm,
didn't learn until later that that's why it feels so weird. You have a foot in both spots, like the old culture and the new culture, and where do you belong? Because neither culture accepts you fully as their own, right? I
mhm,
go to the
mhm,
Philippines, I'm too American. In America, I'm too Filipino, right?
mm,
So where do you belong? And so finding a group of friends, regardless of whatever background they were from, because there's a lot were Filipino and then Malaysian, and but all of us had that like we have a foot in both cultures, and how do we navigate that? And
Wow.
we didn't know how to articulate that as high school students, obviously, but talking about like, oh yeah, my parents are weird because they do this, and I just really wish they would just like let me have a hamburger for lunch, like,
Uh-huh.
or, you know,
Like, why are they so averse to American food? I don't get it.
yeah, it's so weird. And then of course now as an adult, it's like, oh, because flavor. My
That's why.
parents liked flavor.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You learn later
And
in life.
yeah, exactly. And that's really the biggest thing that happened to me in high school was learning to accept myself. And it
Wow.
didn't really hit me until like junior, senior year, when I started. So, every class you got to do the icebreaker activity of introduce yourself, fun fact, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I'd introduce myself, be like, "Hi, I'm Reinalyn, and my fun fact is I'm a huge nerd." And once I started doing that, like that's when it started clicking for me. Not only
Mhm.
did I accept my identity as a huge nerd, because I read Star Wars books every day.
Wow. I I'm
Like,
honestly admiring that because like I'm only familiar with the films, but not the books. Like there's so much
oh,
lore in the
oh,
books.
there's so much more in the pre-Disney canon. So the Legends
Mm.
canon is the thing
Hmm.
that lives in my brain rent free. And I like Maurice got to hear a whole set of things for like an hour because he asked me one thing about Star Wars.
This is slowly becoming like a nerd podcast, Raylan. I'm just
100%.
just kidding.
100%. I will turn anything into a nerd podcast. It's like the Midas touch, but for nerddom.
So I'm gonna have you on my other podcast, the Fifth Dimension podcast, where we're just nerd about a lot of things.
Oh,
So
oh,
we need to have you on at some point
absolutely. Block off the
in three
weekend.
years. No, but for real, uh, I love that you're like very passionate about learning and absorbing,
Mhm.
and being very the thing that stuck out to me was like you accepting who you are,
Yeah.
and that happened during the high school. You said during the junior year.
Mhm.
Did that leave you room to participate in other things outside of history, outside of
Mhm.
reading, outside of all those things? Did it give you an opportunity to engage in high school activities?
I did a few things. Trying to remember exactly what it was. A lot of the things that I did were like advanced English classes.
Ah.
And then I was also in like German club because I decided to take German in high school instead of like any of the more common languages because I wanted to take I've always been a weird kid and uh I'm like, what's the weirdest thing I could take? Is basically always the thought process for me of like what would be the funniest thing. Um and I didn't realize how much of a class clown I was until grad school. But I've always had that thought process of like, okay, what is the strangest thing I can find? I want to try that. And so did I learn a lot of German? Not necessarily, but I did take a lot of German classes. Languages are not very strong for me. English got rooted in, and that's about it.
It kind of like took up the entire space and said, "No more. We've
Yeah,
got
I
we've got
mean,
the first initial language, English. That's
yeah,
it. That's all we got room
yeah.
for."
I mean, English has so many rules and then exceptions to the rule. Like
Oh
there's
my
there's
gosh,
no
yeah.
space for anything else.
Oh my God. I think
Other languages make more sense.
100%. Like I feel like learning English and the process of just understanding it, like, and I don't know
Yeah.
if this is the same for you. When people talk in metaphors, I take it literal. Like when someone
Yeah.
says it's raining cats and dogs, I'm like, there are no dogs and cats
Yes.
falling from the sky.
I was exceedingly literal as a child. And it took me so long to figure out like sarcasm
Oh
and
my gosh.
metaphors. And then
Same.
once I figured it out and what the cues are, I was like, oh, okay, now I get
We're
it.
supposed to laugh at
We're supposed to
that.
laugh at this. Oh, you're being sarcastic. Okay, I see, I see, I see. But to answer your question, the main thing that I did in high school as an extracurricular activity was be part of the Filipino club.
Oh, that's
And
awesome. Yeah.
so I ended up on the executive board for my last 2 years of high school with the same friends that I had eventually made, who are still my high school besties to this day. We were just chatting before starting this.
Oh,
So
cool. Yeah.
yeah, so once you make friends that actually share your same values, even if they don't necessarily do the exact same things, right? Like some
Right.
of them are Star Wars nerds, but not all of them. But
Right.
we just
Right.
accept who all of us are. And it's I've had very long friendships with them, and it's amazing.
Hmm.
But so we were all in Filipino club together,
Hmm.
and that's that's the story of how all of us danced with fire at a school
Oh,
assembly.
whoa.
Yes. So normally the Filipino club will do a dance called tinikling, which is like you take bamboo sticks and then you dance in between them and out of them, kind of
Oh.
like jump rope but with sticks, so
Uh-huh.
it'll hurt more.
Oh my
So the
gosh.
sticks get slammed together,
Oh,
and you're bouncing around your feet. But we had done that for like basically every year since the club started like 15 years ago. And
yeah.
so our executive board decided we wanted to switch it up. The boys did not want to do the coconut dance, which is a traditional dance where you're the men are shirtless and they're just kind of like doing stomp but with coconuts on their body. So the boys were too shy to do that, but
Got
the
it.
girls were like, I guess we'll do the fire dance then. And
Uh-huh.
so we're dancing around with candles and just just twisting them around our bodies as as we do a traditional dance. And only one person got burned.
Only one, thankfully, only one person was burned.
Yeah. Yeah, like
What
one of her
happened?
her wick. We didn't cut the wicks. We didn't
Oh,
know that you should cut wicks on candles.
oh,
So that the
wow.
flame isn't too big. So her
Yeah.
flame was a good 3 inches tall.
Oh,
And so as
gotcha.
she's passing it under her arm, it's actively like scorching her.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then there's like wax dripping everywhere.
Wow. My gosh.
Yeah, we
Well,
went right back to the tinikling
that's
afterwards because it's less of a liability.
but that speaks to your ability to be adventurous and say, we're
Oh
gonna try
yeah,
something new.
100%. I
That's
will
awesome.
do anything once.
Reinalyn, I gotta ask, what is your favorite memory from high school? I imagine it's not the dance itself, that it might have
Actually,
been something
weirdly,
else.
no. My I actually just texted this teacher about this
Mm.
because I think about it all the time, especially advising students.
Hmm.
So, as I mentioned, I was in like honors English, and the my junior year of English, like kind of the end of it, the teachers all asked like, "Hey, do you want to stay in honors or do you want to move up to AP?"
Hmm.
Because we only had senior AP English. And so my teacher asked me that in like a one-to-one meeting, and I go, I just want to stay in honors. And she goes, why? She's like taken aback. She goes, why?
Like, why? Why would you do that?
And I was like, I don't think I can handle it. And she's like, what? and and then I was like, yeah, I just don't think I'm smart enough. And so she looks me dead in the eye. She like leans forward, looks me dead in the eyes, goes, bullshit. You're an AP.
Whoa! Just a straight up like, no, you're an AP.
Yeah, she
That's
straight up cursed at me and told me I was in AP English and I had no choice for it. And to be honest, like I thanked Miss Donnie for that like
yeah.
12, 15 years later because like if it wasn't for the AP English, not only did it give me credits in college that I didn't know it would do, I had no
Yeah.
idea that you got college credit. No one explained that to me. I was like, why am I taking an extra test? It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. But also like the AP class kind of taught me a lot of skills that became useful in grad school.
Mm.
Probably not the ones that they meant to teach us. The things like giving us a lot of reading to do that like you just couldn't do all of it in the 1 or 2 days. but learning the skill of how to read critically, right?
Hmm.
Of how to read for the things that are important and then just ignore the things that are filler, as well as how to write. So the AP English exam, or the AP Lit exam specifically, you have to write an essay, a critical thinking essay about the piece of literature that you just read in 25 minutes. And you do that
Oh,
multiple times.
yeah.
So getting used to writing an essay in 25 minutes, not overthinking my thought process about I've read something very quickly and now I have to respond to it critically,
Hmm.
which is exactly graduate school. so, so, so reading something that's pretty dense and then being able to critically talk about it
Hmm.
became not just something I did in grad school, but something I do professionally, right? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
there's going to be a lot of things that we're doing and interacting with, and we have to learn it quickly, and then not only learn it, but be able to critically think about it of, okay, there's this new policy at work. What are the things that we can do? What are the things we can't do? Are these things going to contradict our grant regulations and legislation? Are these things possible? Can we push back on this thing? Does that give us more freedom to do something that we need to be doing, or does it actively hurt us? And then that's where we need to start making different relationships. So
Wow.
it's an exceedingly useful skill. Highly recommend
Absolutely.
doing lit classes, because you're not just learning about literature. You're learning a thinking skill and a
Absolutely.
writing skill.
Absolutely. When did you start thinking about college?
I never thought about college.
Well, okay, okay, whoa,
Only,
pause, pause,
yeah, I
pause.
know, I
You're,
know. Only,
go ahead.
only in the sense that it was a given in my family. Like,
Okay,
so
fair
I
enough.
never thought about college as a thing that you wouldn't do. So it was always
An
part of the plan.
expectation. Like
Yeah, it was always an
yeah. Oh,
expectation in
wow.
my
Oh,
family.
wow.
It was
Yeah.
never a question, which is funny, because now that I've like talked to my parents as an adult, like, what is your education, right? Like my grandparents, my grandpa, I think both grandpas, um, didn't really finish grade school.
Hmm.
Actually,
Hmm.
no. My grandfather on my father's side got up to eighth grade and then he quit. My grandma quit at about first grade in the Philippines because she had to take care of her siblings, because she's one of the older siblings. And at the time, they had been orphaned. And so she's taking care of all of the siblings, trying to get them through school as one of the older siblings, right? So
Hmm.
of her family, of her siblings, only one of them went to college in the Philippines,
Hmm.
because they put all of their money towards this one child.
Hmm.
Um, my other set of grandparents on my mom's side both basically maybe got to high school, maybe not. And then my parents, my dad, um, in the Philippines had finished high school, but when he moved here, the education systems are different, and so they made him restart high school.
Oh,
His senior year of high school, he's like, I know some of this already, but some of this doesn't make sense because it's
yeah.
American stuff. So, and then because of that, and like not having any money, he only finished an associate's degree because that was the only thing he could afford. And then my mother also finished an associate's degree
Mm.
in the Philippines.
Hmm.
So everyone in my family had the furthest they had gotten was an associate's. And even then they were like, I don't understand how studying works. Like
Oh,
they
yeah. Well,
always
yeah.
talk about how confused they are that I'm so bookish, because no one in the family is like that.
Yeah.
And because they're just like, my mom tells stories of her trying to study for exams, and it's just one in one ear out the other, and she can't remember any of it.
Mm,
And
mm.
for me, like, lore is just a fun little mental trap for me. And I'm like, give it to me. Fun facts.
So
And
I gotta
yeah,
point out this like difference between you and your family,
yeah,
that they're not overthinkers. They're action.
mhm,
They're doers. They're like,
yeah,
just do it and be
yes,
successful at it and be good at it.
yeah,
Where you're a think about it, analyze it, critically think about this because we need to really analyze what this means.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's some interesting dynamics in my family between them and me because of that. But for very clear reasons, my family never thought about ever letting me not go to college. So my dad, so I'm an only child, and typically in Filipino families, there's multiple kids. My mom wanted multiple children, but my dad was kind of thinking ahead, and he's like, "Man, kids are expensive." And he's like, college is really expensive. How are we going to afford this? And so part of it is like
Yes.
not knowing how to fit another child in the dynamic because we were in a small house with five people, one bathroom, like two bedrooms, right? Like he's like, how does this work? And he's like running numbers. and, and then just thinking ahead too, he's like, how do we pay for these kids?
Yeah.
Because like talking to them as an adult now, they're like, what we want for you is for you to do better than us. Right? We got to America, and that's as far as we got. We want you to be able to move forward, right? Like every generation should build on the other. And because he's like, look at the rest of our family. Like all of them, almost all of them live in the Philippines. They live in the same towns. They do the same thing. I want, he's like, I want more than that. And I want you to have more than that. And so ever since I was young, I remember this. My dad had this whole like call and response style mantra that he'd do with me.
Mm.
And it would just kind of happen at random. Dad was thinking about it, which was all the time.
Yeah.
But my dad would have this response. He'd be like, all right, Reinalyn, what do you need to have a good life? And I would respond, money. And then he goes, how do you get money? Get a good job. How do you get a good job? Go to college. How do you get to college? You get good grades. And he's like, and that's why it's important that you get A's. Like,
Wow.
okay.
So, like this little mantra that he had
Yeah.
built up with you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had been doing it since I was like, I would say 6 all the way onward. So like my dad sat me down and was like, so you see how our family is, right? The only way we have this house is because we worked hard. But I don't want you to have to work crazy hours and do this, right? Because like everyone in my family living in that household, right? My parents and my dad's parents, everyone except for my dad worked in a produce company in LA, and some of them worked like grave shift hours and like did some backbreaking work like hauling crates everywhere, and doing stuff. Only my mom and dad worked in an office. My mom worked at a produce company in an office doing accounts payable. My dad worked at the LA County Courthouse as a clerk. His whole life he worked as a clerk. Ever since he was 16, that's how he was trying to pay for school. And like, and he's like, I get flack every day. And he's like, I want more for you than that. So this is how you do it. Like the things that we have in our life, in our family right now is because we have the money to afford these things, right? If we didn't have the money to pay for stuff for emergencies, then we'd be screwed. And this is like a wild thing to have a conversation with like a 12-year-old.
Oh my God,
But
yes.
but I mean that's kind of like growing up in poverty, right? Like my parents, my entire family had grown up in poverty in the Philippines, and my grandma was selling tomatoes because they were orphaned and they were poor her whole life, which is why she is the way she was. And then I didn't find out until I was visiting her in the Philippines maybe like 10 years ago that, and I never put it together, that when she was a child, she was born in the 30s or something. So like when she was a child, some of her most formative memories is the Japanese occupation of the Philippines during World War II. And she was suddenly telling this story out of nowhere, of like, oh hey, yeah, this situation reminds me of the time that we were running through the jungle without light, so that the Japanese couldn't find us.
Oh,
Like our whole village had to evacuate and we're just escaping for weeks on end, living in the jungle. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I never know this?
yeah,
And
intense.
it's so a lot of that like poverty mentality and that
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
the things that we own right now could get taken away from us at any point because of things, right? Like that's why my dad has this like you have to do this. These are the steps to success in America. And my dad's like I couldn't do it myself because I wasn't smart enough and I didn't have enough money to actually go to college
Hmm.
because I had to take care of, your grandparents, right? Like I'm the only one who can translate in English the things that they need to do at work. So my
Hmm.
dad had to be available at any moment to translate.
Hmm.
And that's not to say that I didn't do any of that as well, right? Because my parents were working in LA. So when my grandparents had medical appointments, I was translating as like a 10-year-old.
Hmm.
So, so just growing up like that, having one foot in one door and then one foot in another, right? Like that's where a lot of this is coming from and why I'm so passionate about the work I do in Trio.
That's awesome. Wow. Just hearing your story, like the journey that you've taken up to this point that we're doing
Mhm,
this reflection is just like outstanding and amazing. And yes, like you would think a person with the background that they're given with when they're first generation limited income, that they don't have that many steps to get to college, but you have encouraging parents who are
mhm.
going, you're going to be there and we're going to support
Yeah.
you in every way that we can. And your dad, I love the mantra that he's repeating with you, like
Mhm.
success, this is how it looks like. And he
Yeah.
was really shaping it for you.
Yeah. And so that's why like I never thought about college. I thought that was just the thing everyone did.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So I got to ask, what colleges immediately came to mind for you as you were, because if college was, like,
Mhm.
as you said, something that's automatic and you're going to do it anyway,
Yeah.
did a lot of thought about what college to attend come to mind?
I didn't necessarily give a lot of thought to it, but I had a lot of hopes and dreams about like doing Ivy Leagues or like Stanford,
Ooh,
UCLA,
yeah.
USC, like big name schools, right? Because again, I had that unearned confidence of like, I'm the smartest kid in school, even though like objectively wasn't. I was a smart kid. I wasn't the smartest. Uh, but like kind of, but kind of deep down, like I knew my family situation. I didn't necessarily know the full extent of it, but the more I was more in high school and talking about college as my friends are talking about what colleges they're hoping to go to, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, do you think I could go to UCLA with so and so?" And my dad being like, "Oh, how
Was
much
he,
is tuition?" He's like, "Are you sure you don't want to do a Cal State?" Like, right?
yeah,
Like starting to kind of realize, like, not that I ever saw what our, family checkbook looked like, but knowing that there's a difference. So the high school I went to was kind of an affluent high school. It had really high test scores,
ooh, yeah.
but that also came with some affluence. And so, like, some of the students are like rolling up into the student parking lot in Mercedes Benz, and I'm
Whoa.
rolling up in a hand-me-down like Honda. So, like the thing is on its last legs. It, like it had, I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember cars that had the automatic seatbelts?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Like they go
my car had an
ding.
automatic seatbelt and it would choke everyone because they didn't know.
Like what is your car doing to me?
Yeah, they were like, what is happening? Why is the seatbelt attacking me? And so, right? So I'm rolling up in these old cars and they like so I kind of knew that I wasn't going to
Right.
be able to go to an Ivy League unless I had scholarships. And as much as I tried to get scholarships by being a genius, I was not a genius. So, so I always knew I was going to go to a college nearby and kind of like, as my dad and I discussed it, my two choices were Cal State Fullerton or California State University Fullerton
Hmm.
or Cal State LA. And Cal State Fullerton is technically closer to where we live. It's still like an hour long drive, but it's still better than driving and getting stuck in traffic on the way to LA to get to
For
Cal State
sure.
LA.
For sure.
And there were a few plots that we had kind of tried to figure out if I got into Cal State LA, but not Cal State Fullerton. Of like, okay, well, my parents go to work in LA. Maybe they'll just drop me off on their way to work. I would just have to wake up at like 4 or 5 a.m. to
Oh,
join
geez.
them for for beating the rush hour traffic. And then I just stay on campus all day long
Oh my
until they're
gosh.
done with work. And so my classes couldn't go past like 5 p.m. And we were just like, I don't know how that works because none of us have been in college. So we're like, my dad's asking me on the campus tour, like,
Oh my
do you
gosh.
think the classes end before 5? I'm like, I don't know. I
Gosh.
didn't know you could choose your own classes in college. It's not like high school where you
Yeah.
just are done at a
Yeah.
certain point. Where's the bell?
Oh my gosh. So your parents also had a lot of questions about the next
Oh,
steps
so
of college.
many.
Oh, so many.
So
Oh my
many
gosh.
questions. It was just the blind leading the blind when we started doing the FAFSA. It's like, Dad, what's an asset? And he's like, I don't know. What it's an asset? Like,
You tell
I
me.
don't know. You tell me. Is it on the taxes?
I'll share with you, Reinalyn. So I was fortunate enough to be in the Trio Per Bound program. My parents, when it came to the FAFSA, like that's when they unloaded all the questions to the director. They're like, "So why do I have to provide my IRS
Right.
tax forms?" But before all that, they just trusted the director to like, "You know what you're doing. We give him to you, and you guide him to college because
Correct.
this is too
Yeah.
overwhelming." And I remember my mom going, "Yeah, because this is too much. I'm not gonna remember any of this." So I'm right there
Yeah,
with
my
you.
dad's my dad's whole plot was like, "Oh, hey, the housing crisis has happened. I think we can move our entire family to a better school district."
Yeah.
Because the whole reason they were paying for private school, even though it was like stretching the budget,
Hmm.
was because the public school of the city that we were in was kind of well known for like fights breaking out on a daily basis.
Oh.
And
Oh my
like my
gosh.
dad felt it was unsafe.
Hmm.
And so that's why he paid the money for private school. Like he asked his friends, who were also kind of in towns next to us of like, hey, where do you send your kid? Like, does this feel safe? Is this a good education? That kind of thing. And so, my dad, when he saw an opportunity to go to a better school district, was like, all right, we'll move the house and it's perfectly on the edge of the school district. And so he's like, "Oh, look, it just so lucked out that that's where your high school is."
Everything worked out.
It's in the high school that I see in the like he literally told me this. He's like, "I've seen this high school in the newspapers for having high SAT scores."
Oh, wow.
And he's like, "This must be how to get to college."
He just figured that's the best step.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
So I gotta ask, now that you've been exposed to the college, you've went to campus tours, was there a particular college that topped your list?
To be honest, no, because I always had my heart kind of set on a college with prestige. And so I did apply for
Okay.
UCLA, and my dad straight up asked me, "How are we going to pay for that?" And I was like, "Hopefully scholarships." Not that I understood how to get one. But but UCLA gave me the biggest package to
Oh,
tell me that I
wow.
didn't get in.
Oh, you
Like,
had me going for a
why?
second.
Why was the envelope so thick?
That's my look. At least in high school, I understood like big packages meant good news,
Yeah,
and the slim package meant like that's your rejection letter, right?
yeah. But Cal State Fullerton gave me an early acceptance.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And it was just a regular envelope that was like, "Hey, good job. Your GPA is high enough. Please come to us." And
Oh my gosh.
I was like, "Okay, neat."
So now that
Because I
you've gotten
also
right.
didn't understand how like college admissions worked.
Mhm.
We were just kind of told by our teachers, like, "Hey, applications are open. You should apply now." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
only following along with what my friends are doing because some of my friends had like siblings. If they were first gen, they had siblings that were older who went through it already. Or they were not first gen students. So I just kind of followed along what people were doing and just being like, hey dad, do you have like $25 so I could pay for the admission fee?
Right.
Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, my dad's like, what's it for? And I'm like, I don't know. They said you have to pay.
It's like there's a fee here. It says
I
fee.
guess. My dad's like, for what? You're not in yet. I'm like, I have literally no clue.
Like it's for something.
There's something to do with this. It's just how America is. I don't know, man.
That could literally be the explanation for everything. This is just America. This is how it works.
It's so true.
I'm curious, what guidance or assistance did you receive to prepare for college as you now that you've gotten your early acceptance and all that, like was there did you have an idea of like what to do next? I'm sure like the schools provided like here's what you need to do next, but did
Mhm.
you receive guidance on like to get the ball rolling?
In terms of like actual guidance, no, because so this again, the school was very like our students always get accepted into colleges. We have high SAT scores, and so they just kind of treated you like you would just know what would happen next.
Hmm.
And and so a lot of the advice that I was getting was kind of the typical advice of like the college professors aren't going to accept your late work and this and that, right? Which like
Oh yeah,
actually
yeah,
the
yeah.
college professors are a lot more chill.
Oh yeah,
I
learning about
found
that
out later.
later.
Yeah, I found out later as long as you were willing to talk to them and say like ahead of time like, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to figure this out by this time because something is happening in my life that it's taking precedence. Do you mind giving me like a day or two
Hmm.
extension, right?"
Yeah.
But the best advice that I did get that I did end up using in college was for my German teacher, Frau Ravel, lovely human.
Ooh.
She was always giving us life advice all the time. And this is the one that she told us all the time. And I told her later that I used it. And she was super proud of me. Was she always told us to pursue the thing that we actually have a passion for instead of just pursuing a career that would make us money because she
Hmm.
knew the area, right? And her students are always going to careers because their parents are telling them this is what they will pay for. They want like parents are constantly paying for the students to be nurses, doctors, lawyers because it's going to make the family money. It gives the family prestige because it was also a fairly Asian neighborhood. And she knew that and always told us stories of like, hey, I had a student who said, you were right, Faravel. I should have just done what I wanted to do and fought my parents on it
Mm.
because I'm miserable. And her whole thing was like, you are going to be working for a significant period of your life. You might as well be doing something that you actually enjoy, even if it doesn't pay you as much, because you're never going to get that time back.
Hmm.
Like, you don't want to be miserable your whole life. Miserable people just make more miserable people.
Mm. Wow. Can you talk about the moment you graduated from high school? What did this moment mean to you, and what did it mean to your family?
My family was probably a lot happier about me graduating high school than I was.
Oh, wait. Typically, it's the person who's graduating that's like the
I know.
most excited, but you're
Yeah.
saying it was the opposite. It was like you were.
Yeah, they were taking photos and I just the whole time I kept being like, what is the deal? Everyone goes to college. Right? Because again, I went to a fairly affluent high school where the expectation was to always go to college. So to
Yeah.
me, it was never a question of is college possible? The question was which college and how long is it going to take for me to graduate?
Yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
for me, it was just like this is just the next step. And also like because I was going to the nearest college, I was going to see most of these people anyways. So it was just like,
Like,
oh
I'll
man,
see you there.
I don't get to go to, Irvine or Riverside or UCLA like this person or like this person went to Yale. And so like for me, I had a bit of an ego hit, right? Of
Mm. Hmm.
getting the realization of I'm not the smartest kid in class. I didn't have the grades to get to an Ivy League or UCLA or something with prestige, and so that was bothering me,
Hmm.
honestly, that I didn't have that prestige behind me, that I had the confidence that I could get. And but also the fact that, my family had always expected college to be the next step. So for me, it was like, yay, I'm happy I finally graduated. And then I finally get to go to college, like a thing that sounds fun, right? Like you see all of the college movies. Again, I'm
Right. Right.
highly raised by TV.
So
So
there's a perception of college that you have,
yeah,
like, I'm ready to
exactly. And
be
I'm like,
that stage.
college is where you go to have fun.
Yes.
Little did I know it doesn't work that way when you still live with your parents.
Completely different experience.
Completely different experience. But what I wanted the most was the freedom, right, of college,
Absolutely.
what that represents to me. But otherwise, like high school graduation was just like, oh, a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I imagine it to be like it was just another check mark on your list
pretty
of
much.
this is the other thing I have to do. Oh, I'm graduated. Great, moving on to the next thing.
Yep.
And the college experience was where everything kind of happened. So you attended California State University in Fullerton. I was gonna about to ask you why, but now you kind of answered the why. So
Yeah.
because I'm gonna switch up the question and ask, were you happy with your choice?
At the time, no, because it was like, oh, this is where all the townies go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it felt like I wasn't achieving as highly as my ego wanted me to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't figure out like what was the problem. Like there's my perception of myself, but somehow something isn't adding up.
Right. Okay.
And it didn't feel like a failure, but it felt like I wasn't achieving maximum potential, right?
Oh, I
And that
see.
like the general joke is that like you'll just go to the college that's nearby, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, fine. And plus I was also living with my parents, so it really felt like nothing really changed except for I get to go to classes that I actually do want to go to,
Right.
instead of being forced to
Before
be in school from like 7 a.m. to
this is
3
your
p.m.
block schedule and you have to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And I got to have more choice in things. And so that was kind of nice. But the more I did college and actually opened myself up to experiences, the more I was like, this isn't terrible.
Mm. You're like, this
Like
isn't bad.
this isn't a terrible school, actually. And then interestingly enough, my freshman year, I did not know this at the time, despite the fact that there were flyers.
There were
So
flyers. Okay.
we always had like free concerts like once or twice a week. Or sorry, once or twice a month on like Tuesdays or something. Free
Uh-huh.
concerts in the quad. And I saw these flyers, bright pink. It said like "No Doubt" playing on the quad, and I was like, "Wow, that cover band is stunningly like No Doubt."
Oh.
That's crazy. Because again, my mentality was like, nothing happens at Cal State Fullerton.
I got okay. That makes
And
sense.
yeah. And then of course, like I'm passing by the quad on my way to math class and I'm like, wow, they're playing No Doubt music. That's cool. And then and then it's like 2 or 3 weeks later that they were like, did you see Gwen Stefani? And it was like, the what? They were like, the No
You're
Doubt
like, hold up.
concert. I was like, that wasn't a cover band. And then I was like, why would Gwen Stefani be here? And they
Yeah.
were like, she went here for school before they got big and she quit. And I was
Oh.
like, oh my God. And then I started looking into it, right? And the fact that Cal State Fullerton is just like one stop away to Disneyland and is still like,
Oh
even
yeah,
though it's
yeah.
not in
Yeah,
LA
yeah.
County, it's still close enough to LA that, some folks did use that as a stepping stone. So like some of the alumni of Cal State Fullerton are like Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Like there are actual celebrities who have stepped foot on this campus and I'm like, oh, okay. So like I gotta change my mind about how I think about this.
Absolutely. Wow. So that is in itself amazing. I do want to ask you, because now that you're setting foot in college,
Mhm.
I'm sure you're immediately thinking, okay, I got to figure out like a program I want to be in. I don't have
Yeah.
a lot of time to waste.
Yeah.
I gotta figure out what I want to do. Did you know what program or major you wanted to enter?
I did because my parents told me I had to be a nurse.
So nursing, right?
Yeah. So my parents put me in nursing, and the more and this was even like in senior year of high school.
Mm.
We were talking about colleges. My dad's like, this one has a nursing major. I already looked into their program. Like my dad is as he's very much a doer. Uh and so he will go out and just ask questions, just figure things out.
Mm.
And he'll compare everything. So like trying to
Oh.
buy like a computer with him is the worst because he will look at specs all day.
He's not settling on one store. He's looking
No.
at all the stores that sell
Yeah, he's
laptops.
got to consider all the factors. So
Gotcha.
that's where I get the rules are here from. So you always know you're not going to get taken for a scam, but it might take like 3 months before you ever get the thing that you're looking for.
Good.
But yeah.
Maybe like that's foundational research right
Yes,
there.
exactly. This is why I'm such a good researcher, is my dad constantly like always going through, okay, double check this. Like, why? Please. So so my dad had done a lot of the pre-work of like, okay, Cal State Fullerton has a pre-nursing major that they've turned into an accelerated program. So you'll do the prereqs in 2 years. The next 2 years are going to be the nursing stuff, and then you graduate. So it's a 4 year program. We can afford that. And then he's like, Cal State LA has kind of something like this, but it's in trimesters, so I don't really know how that works.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I don't either, because I've only ever been on a semester system. And he's like, it's in quarters. What does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. I literally cannot understand the concept of quarter system.
It doesn't make sense to me. I like
It
the
really
traditional 16
doesn't.
week.
I
I
know. I know, but my friends who have done quarter system are like, it's better because once you're failing and it's over. I was like, wait, why is that better?
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, how is that any better?
They're like, it just happens fast. And I'm like, wait,
No.
what? But yeah, so I was always told I was going to be a nursing major. And I just kind of went with it because I personally didn't have, like, I knew college was going to be a thing, but I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't understand how majors worked, how majors connected to careers, and like what the future would look like. So every time I thought about like myself as an adult, it was just like it was just snow on the TV. It was just a big buzz of like, you fill it in here. Like, I don't know, that's weird.
That channel needs an antenna. We need to focus it.
Exactly. You just got to move the bunnies. And so
I
I
totally hear that.
personally, yeah, I personally never had a clue of what my future was going to look like.
Mhm.
My parents did, and so I went with it because I couldn't prefer like a better option.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I was doing the nursing major and taking nursing classes, and I was one class away from applying for the nursing program.
Mhm.
But budget cuts in California hit because the governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Oh, I remember
was trying
this.
to balance the budget because California was in deep in debt. And so that meant a lot of professors were furloughed. They were cutting sections to just make the budgets match up. And that meant I couldn't get into the one section of microbiology, and it's a spring only class.
Oh,
And so I had
oh.
to just kind of come up with classes for a whole year. And so I decided to take my advanced GEs that I would have like been working on during my nursing program anyways. At this time, I was doing all sorts of internships in the hospitals and clinics, and I was doing a lot of like urgent care stuff. And that was interesting,
Mhm.
but still not a passion of mine. And but I didn't know what was. I had never thought about it before. Like, what would I do?
Yeah.
Because author's out. I don't know how to creatively write. So what would I do? I have no clue. And so for my GEs, I was looking at the options, right? And I'm like, poli sci doesn't really hit. humanities, I don't know what that means. And then there were psychology classes for some of the advanced GEs. And I'm like, oh, I'll take some psychology classes. I've always been interested in psychology. I just never had the opportunity to take anything.
Hmm.
And so I took a critical thinking class with Dr. Weissman Devontes, who ends up being a huge mentor for me in college and helps walk me through like what does this mean? Like she's just and one of the things that stuck with me, weirdly enough, the one thing I learned from new student orientation was the dean of students saying you have to make relationships with your professors. Like you have to make connections. The best
Oh,
way to do
okay.
that is for office hour, go to office hours, just
Hmm.
chat with them. Your
Hmm.
professors are humans too. And you're when you go and try to get careers, you're going to need letters of recommendation, you're going to need references. They have to come from someone at your college. And I'm like, oh God, okay, a homework assignment. Um, so that first year I was just going to office hours of any new professor that I had for that first week to just kind of see and feel out the professors, right? And so just being like, okay, your history class is kind of cool. Let me go to your office hours. And like, some of the professors are legitimately just eating lunch. And I that was the vibes I was getting was like, this is their personal lunchtime. And I'm like, okay, bye. Um, but Dr. Weissman just was willing to chat about anything and everything. And so I ended up just like following her through every psychology class that I needed. So if there was an option for a psych class and she was teaching it, I'd take it.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd go to her office hours basically on a daily basis. Like I started just like sitting in front of her office all the time just to chat. And then we ended up having like a small group of people who followed her from class to class and also chatted with her before classes in her office hours. And so a small group of friends, one of whom I'm still friends with today. And I discovered later, I forgot about this, but Dr. Weissman Davlantes had written a book about critical thinking, and she put us in the acknowledgments
That's awesome. In the acknowledgments
because
page? That's awesome.
because we were just always talking to her all the time, especially when she was thinking about this. And,
Hmm.
I was talking to her about her, like it was a critical thinking class and it was one of the GEs. And this professor was so cool. She was just so blunt and upfront about everything. And she started the class with, does anyone know what an iconoclast is? And I was like, no. So I'm like, I should have known that for the SATs. And she explains like an iconoclast is someone who goes by the beat of their own drum. Like they are someone who is iconic and they don't necessarily follow what other people are doing because they have a good idea.
Hmm.
And she's like, that's I have been described as an iconoclast because I don't always follow the grain. So this is what you're going to be dealing with in this class. I'm going to challenge you and challenge your thought process. I'm not asking you to change your thought process. I just want you to actually think about why you think the way you do. And that was mind opening to me, which is why I went to her office hours and chatted with her about stuff. And then I started, once I had established this relationship about like, hey, your class is super cool. Like, I really enjoyed these readings. It went from I enjoy these readings to, hey, I'm supposed to be going into nursing, but like at deep in my body, I feel it's wrong, but I don't know what else to do. And
Hmm.
so, I'm talking to her about like, I don't want to disappoint my parents. Like, they're paying for school. I literally live with them. And she's like, what is the worst that would happen if you change your major? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I legitimately do not know. I've always followed what my parents have told me up to this point.
Hmm.
Like, would they kick me out? I have no clue. Like I have never tested the boundaries like this before. I'm a rule follower.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
am afraid of consequences all the time. I have anxiety. And so and she's like, "Okay, well realistically, like your parents love you. Like would they ever, you're an only child. Like they are doing all of these things because they care and love you. Would they ever do anything to abandon that. And I was like, I mean, I don't think so, but I don't want to try it. Like,
Yeah. It's like I don't want to
and
experiment with that.
yeah, I'm not gonna push it. But she's like, realistically, would you be a nurse? And I'm like, I mean, I could do it. And she's like, doing it is different from wanting it. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay,
Hmm.
crazy. And I end up acting like my dad. Like, I know I want to change majors, but I have to put like a whole PowerPoint together of like why changing majors is beneficial and how we will not lose financial like responsibilities
Right, right,
by
right.
changing majors. Like, I'm not picking the worst things I could pick that wouldn't earn any money whatsoever once I got the bachelor's degree. So like, I'm pulling up facts and figures about like if I go, so like I chose psychology because as I took more psychology classes, I was like the things that interested me the most was how do people work, right? Again, like I grew up by myself, only interacting with adults. And so just like people are confusing to me.
Hmm.
And psychology allowed me like that avenue of like I can do research, I can figure out how things work and like what makes people tick. And that scratched an itch for me. And I was like, this is amazing. And like I put together this whole thing about like here is the earning potential of a psychology major, right? Like you know, I'm not going to be broke once I graduate with a bachelor's degree. Here are the career options for a bachelor's degree versus this. And I originally thought I was going to, like, I was telling my parents, I'm going into industrial organizational psychology, so business psychology.
Ooh,
And I was
yeah.
like, that's the one that earns the most money out of all the avenues.
They
And
were
like,
sold
and
at this
here's,
point. They should have been sold, right?
I know. And here's all the things that I'm going to do about it. I'm going to become an advertising minor. Like I'll be doing this internship, et cetera, et cetera. Like there will be money at the end of this.
Hmm.
And my parents allowed me to do it, but they were very unhappy. Like I've never seen both my mom and dad
Oh,
unhappy with me
oh
because
wow.
my dad didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. And the only reason he spoke to me was because the water main in our house broke and he needed help. And
Oh,
then we had to go and steal water from public parks for a while
oh,
that was getting figured out, right?
yeah.
So that's literally the only reason we started talking earlier.
Mhm.
Otherwise, like he could have gone for a very long time.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yet my mother was also mad because like it wasn't that she stopped talking to me, but she stopped talking to me like out of choice. So she'd talk to me if I asked a question, but otherwise she'd be kind of quiet
Hmm. Hmm.
and reserved. And I was like, oh, I done messed up. I don't know if this is gonna work. So like of course I'm going back to Dr. Devonte's and just being like, they're not talking to me. What do I do? She's like, it's okay. It's
Hmm.
okay. They didn't kick you out, so they don't hate you. They're just figuring it out and changing their perception of this and what the future is going to look like for you in this, that. And it wasn't until like I had gotten into, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, had gotten into the maximizing access to research careers program or the MARC program that paid for my tuition and also gave me a stipend. And then I went to grad school, and the same thing happened. I got a full tuition waiver and a stipend, and but my dad was seeing that like, oh, you're not going to be broke in a box on the side of the street. That there actually is a way to earn money
Yeah,
in this research thing that you're doing,
yeah. Well,
even if he
that's
doesn't get it.
yeah. That's that's fascinating. I think you have a spectrum of parents, right? One on your end where they want you to earn a degree in a particular field. They want you to be
Mhm.
successful. And I remember working with parents when I was an Upward Bound as the director. The parents that were like, we just want them to get a degree and be okay. If
Mhm.
they're a teacher, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
And that's what Eastern New Mexico University was known for is like we churn out great teachers. And they're like,
Hmm.
if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. But I just find it very interesting that there's a spectrum of parents of like, where do they land about where they want their child to be?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this next question before we get to the mark part of your
Hmm.
life. Because in high school you had certain activities,
Yeah.
did you have a lot of activities in college?
I really didn't have a lot of activities in college. Like in high school, I didn't do a lot of activities as a function of I took the bus. And so if something was going past like 3 p.m., I could not do it. I needed to get on that
Oh,
bus
yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
home.
Got it.
And so
Got it.
otherwise, there's no way to get home. But in college, I didn't necessarily have that restriction, but I to me, I don't know exactly what it was, if it was just like the shyness of trying for something, but I didn't really pursue a lot of clubs. Like I was eventually in Psychi, the National Honor Society for Psychology, because I only did it because people were like, it's a one-time membership fee and you're a member forever. And I was like, that's an amazing deal.
I like that. That's good.
and and also they were like, if you're a part of this, that opens up scholarships for grad school. And I was like, okay,
That's
perfect.
awesome. That's awesome.
And then I was also part of psychology club because I was a psych major, so I just was a part of it. And
Makes
paid the
sense.
dues because I was like, maybe this will look good on on, on the CV. And then, but in terms of things that I did for myself, the one thing I did was become a college radio DJ.
Oh, that's awesome.
Titan Radio, baby. And I ran a trivia and music radio show.
Ooh,
So
cool.
I'd ask like silly questions of random fun facts that lived in my brain or that I found out about,
Mhm.
and then played like indie music that I enjoyed, um, or was just obsessed with at the time.
Mhm.
While I waited for people to call in, and luckily, because again, our school was next to Anaheim, they had a lot of tickets to like House of Blues concerts, so I'd just be
Ooh.
giving away like free tickets to see like Flogging Molly, like All American Rejects, like,
Wow.
whoever was playing at House of Blues that month.
And you're like, we have tickets.
Yeah,
Call in.
exactly. And then yeah, exactly. And the deal at the radio show was, hey, if no one claims these tickets, it's for you guys, the DJs.
That is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to point out because you were also a scholar of the Maximizing Access to Research Careers. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
What was this program and did it make an impact on you?
Yeah, so the Maximizing Access to Research Careers program, or MARC program, is essentially the National Institutes of Health version of the McNair program.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, so it functions almost the same way. It's in your last 2 years. The main difference is that it's for underrepresented students who are interested in doctoral studies in biomedical sciences. And
Mhm.
so the NIH's version of STEM fields includes psychology. So I, as a psych major, was very fortunate to be able to slide into this. And it made such a huge impact in my life, not just because they paid for 60% of my tuition for
Mhm.
2 years and gave me a stipend for 2 whole years, which helped me pay for graduate school, but it opened up so many doors for me, right? So I had talked about that mismatch of like where I saw myself and then where the places I ended up.
Mhm.
And I couldn't figure out like I have some grades that are equivalent to some of the other people that went off to more prestigious schools, but I just never got those offers. And realizing it's not my grades that were the downfall, it was my sheer lack of other activities.
Oh.
like like because I did nothing else in high school or college but classes. Because again, right, the mantra that my dad had worked out with me was, what do you need to do to be good at school? Good grades, right?
Mhm.
Everything was good grades in school, and that's the formula to success. However, learning through college and even grad school, like really the most powerful things are the connections that you have made and the skills that you have learned. Everyone can get the grades. The grades are a matter of retaking classes and actually figuring out how the classes work. But grades aren't everything. They are a stepping stone to getting into the applicant pool. What actually gets you a job or a position or, a spot in school is, what do you bring to the table? What is unique about you? And, having a GPA doesn't make me unique. And that was a hard lesson to learn. But being in the MARC program, that's what they pointed out. They were like, you are in a specialty program. This program only accepts 6 people a year. You are special. And we're trying to diversify what biomedical sciences and higher education look like, because we recognize that there are barriers to first gen students and students from low income backgrounds and students from diverse backgrounds, including like disabilities, that your maximum potential doesn't always get accounted for. And that was eye-opening to me, because I never understood why I felt so lost and confused all the time when there's a piece of paper that says, this is your degree. You just pick these classes. And I'm like, what am I missing? Something feels off. And I'm super fortunate to have had a mentor in Dr. Weissman Delfontes, because the first time I got the letter, on letterhead, mind you, that, hey, this MARC program exists. We're reaching out to you because of your GPA and the fact that you're in a STEM field. We think you'd be the perfect candidate to apply for a program. Like, it's for this. We'll pay you a stipend. Not that I knew what a stipend was. And we'll pay off like 60% of your tuition. And I went, this is a scam. And I tossed away the letter. I was like, that is too good to be true. Like, I know what a scam looks like. If it's too good to be true, someone is trying to get one over on you. Right? Like, again, it's that poverty mentality. Someone is trying to screw you over because they know they
want
can.
something, yeah.
Because they know you're too dumb to figure it out. And that's why, like, an education is important. Like, you can see the cues. But it was on letterhead. Like, officially signed. And so the next year I got the same letter, and I was like, that's a weird scam to wait a whole year. And I'm like, something's not adding up. And so I took it to my professor. I'm like, is this real? Because I've never heard of this. Like, this doesn't make sense. Why would they pay me to be in school? I paid to go to school. That's what tuition is.
Right.
Like, that's how this works. It's a transactional relationship.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, this is real. Like, I also haven't heard of it, but like, I know this professor exists. Like, go for it. And I was like, what? She's like, no, these things happen. They're called fellowships. And I was like, this is crazy. And so I did the interview and got into the program, got set up with the research faculty mentor for 2 years, just hit the ground running on research and doing things. And like, I got to go to professional conferences on the NIH's dime. I didn't have to pay a thing unless I wanted souvenirs. And I also ended up, so they forced us to go do research somewhere else, which at the time I was like, why? I'm always going to be here. I can't afford to leave. And that's exactly the point. Like, Dr. Cohen was like, that's the point. Experience something different. You never know. And I was like, I'm never going to go anywhere. And so I did some applications and they're like, do some shoot for the sky schools. Because they had seen the list and it's all stuff nearby, and they're like, do something else. And I'm like, okay, fine. And so anyways, I get a call from Princeton. They're like, hey, we're super interested in you. Please, like, tell us if you want to do our externship to do research for the summer for 8 weeks. And I was like, that's crazy.
Well, first,
yes.
Reinalyn, I've got to interrupt. This is an Ivy League school.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And I was like, the Princeton? Me, right? Like, Reinalyn, that's the name?
Yeah.
Not anyone else. So they're like, yes. And so, and we got connected with the grad school at Princeton, and I was like, why me? And the dean of the grad school was like, it's because we don't get people from California ever applying.
Oh, interesting.
Like, one, you're a Marx scholar, which means that you come with research skills, and then two, no one from the West Coast ever applies, and we don't know why. And I was like, because you're Princeton. and and like that experience was super transformative. Like I had roommates from different places. We had Google chats for like a super long time, even afterwards. Like several people have one person has gone to run for office in her state, and then one of the people in my cohort ended up developing, like, being the founder of like Black TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I was like, wow, we are amazing people. and and several people became professors, and are still in that, like, helping out first gen students mentality. So it was a very cool experience. And on top of that, we also saw the Obamas from a distance because
Oh.
Malia Obama was in a soccer camp at that time.
Mhm.
And then I got to meet Tina Fey. And
Wow.
that's the photo I use to introduce myself to every class.
You gotta flex a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm not any professor. I'm a cool professor. Uh, and so I got to meet and take a picture with Tina Fey because she was filming Admission at the time. And so
Oh, okay, that's right.
I had gotten released from class and was heading to one of the libraries on campus to study. And somehow heard that they were filming somewhere in a blocked off area that blocked me off from the library. So I decided to just stand there. And then suddenly whispers were going around of like, Tina Fey's gonna come out and meet some of us. And I'm like, ooh, forget studying. So when I say it opened doors, it opened a lot of doors, including to celebrities.
That is awesome.
And then also from like a personal perspective, like, I didn't know how doctorate programs worked. I thought you had to go to work first and then go to a master's and then work some more and then do a doctorate. Like, I thought like a doctorate
It's like the
was something like 40 years down the line.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and they were like, no, you can apply for a doctorate program as soon as you finish your bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is game changing. And I did the same thing too, where I only applied to master's programs
Mhm.
originally, and then my director, Dr. Cohen, was looking at the list, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I these are achievable." And she's like, "Do more than achievable." She's like, "You are an intelligent person. You have to apply to at least one doctorate degree. You don't have to go. You just have to apply." And
Mhm.
she's
Mhm.
and then I was like, "Well, I don't think I'm gonna make it." And she's like, regardless, you are contractually obligated to apply to a
So the
doctorate
hints
program
didn't
for
work.
this
She had to
grant.
explicitly.
I know. So she was like, I know you're a rule follower. You'll do it if it's a rule. It's,
I absolutely love that they were like, it's a rule. You have to do
yeah. She's like,
it.
well, if you won't do it for yourself, you'll do it because there's a rule. I'm like,
Guess what? It's
you
part of the
got me.
requirements.
You got me. She's like, we need it for the grant. I'm like, okay.
That's
And
awesome.
and and again, that's literally the only reason I did it, was because I didn't think I was smart enough even after going through this program, doing research, like doing things that undergrads don't normally get a chance to do. I still thought I didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
And like, I applied to doctorate programs and got interviews, but which
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
amazing. And I was like, this would never happen to me without this program.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask you this question about careers because
Mhm.
you switched to psychology. Was there like a research focused career that you wanted to go into, or was it more of a practice counseling and therapy?
I knew I didn't want to do therapy because I was afraid of people.
Wait. But
Yeah.
psychology is dealing with people.
This is what I'm saying, where like I don't necessarily put two and two together. I had an interest in psychology as a subject to study. And
Oh, got
I
it.
remember very
Got it.
clearly going to my mentor, Dr. Weissman Duflantes, and being like, Lisa, I don't understand people and I like psychology and I don't know what kind of career would happen out of this. And this is before I got the letter from the Mark program, or rather, before I accepted that the letter was real.
Got it.
And she's like
Sorry.
what I want to do in life is just be a student forever. I just love learning. And she's like, "Do
Mm.
you know what that is? That's a career." And I was like, "How?" She went, "Research. Research is perpetually learning." And I'm like, "That's crazy talk. Is
Like,
there research
no.
in psychology?" And she's like, "Yes." What do you think you participate in for Sona credits? I'm like, "That's crazy. That's a career choice and not just like a random school project." And so, because again, I knew nothing, knew nothing.
Sorry.
And so,
I'm so sorry.
I know this is exactly why I love being an advisor, because I can tell these stories to students and just be like, trust me, you can make it. If my oblivious butt can figure it out, I promise you, with advice that you pay attention to, this will work. And, and
Oh my
so
gosh. Uh,
And so she's like, it's research. Like, that's wild. And so, because I kept being like, I love psychology, but I don't want to be a therapist. Like, I actively hate people. And she's like, you do know psychology isn't just therapy, right? I was like, actively no. So, tell me more. And she's like, you could be a professor, you could be a teacher. And I was like, oh, okay.
Got it. So that's when things like really
Yeah, that's
started
when
more
things
coming into
started clicking
focus.
into a career.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk about the moment you graduated from CSU Fullerton? What
Mhm.
did this moment mean to you personally? Just you.
Yeah, so personally, just to me, it was just like my high school graduation. Was like I had gotten the acceptance to ISU, and so I knew I had something to move forwards to, and that this was a I did it, I made it. So I was still happy that I graduated, right? Because changing majors added extra time to my degree, which was
Mhm.
very frustrating to my dad, who had perfectly planned out 4 years of school budgetarily. So, and so, I graduated in 5 years, and was looking around. My friends had graduated in four and started careers, and I'm like, oh man, I might have messed up. But I had gotten into a doctorate program for experimental psychology at ISU, and so I knew I had something. And so
Mhm.
I was happy more about that than the actual graduation, because I had literally no plan. If I didn't
Mm.
get into any programs, there was no backup plan, there was no safety net. It was grad school or bust.
Yeah. And so
Yeah,
you,
so yeah,
yeah.
so that's why I was happy. I was like, I get to move forward in the next step.
So then did you do a PhD first? That was that attempt first,
Yeah.
and then you did the master's?
No, the master's is actually on the way. So
Okay.
the way that this program worked is um, you do a master's thesis, then comps, and then start working on the dissertation. And so I had gotten all the way up to the point of working on dissertation and proposing it.
Hmm.
And then just my values had changed so much at that point.
Mm.
Well, rather not, my values didn't change so much as like clarified. Because when you look, I was teaching a McNair class about how to do personal statements, and I always use myself as an example.
Hmm.
And so I showed them like, hey, now in hindsight, here's the things I would change about this personal statement. Like, here's the things.
Hmm.
Being on the other side and looking at that personal statement, I hadn't read it since, doing the edits on it and then submitting it. The first paragraph has, I'm Reinalyn. I want to go to graduate school because I want to be a role model to students like me who
Hmm.
don't know that, you know, so Filipinos, especially females, all nurses. Like it's a common thing in our culture because again, it's that mentality of what is the career that's going to get you out in working and then being able to help the family fastest. And
Hmm.
it's typically nursing. There's a
Hmm.
few other career choices that the Filipinos will gravitate towards, but that's kind of the most common one.
Hmm.
And for me, as you know, like I like doing the strange thing. I don't like following a crowd. And like that actively was like, I don't know how to not follow the crowd on this one. There's no examples. And so my personal statement is all about I want to go to graduate school, get this doctorate in psychology, because when I looked around at my professors, I didn't see anyone who looked like me.
Hmm.
Filipinos don't go into higher education. Filipinos go and work and help out the family. I want to show people of other cultures that act like us that there is other routes, that you can do more than what you have seen before, right? Because you only know what's possible if you see it, right?
Hmm.
Thinking about like, oh yeah, I could be an astronaut. Like that's just like a thing, right? Like it's a thing I say, but not necessarily something I'm going to do because I don't know the pathway. Like it doesn't feel possible until I see someone actually go through it who has been through some of the same experiences as me. And I want to be that person to a student.
That's wonderful. I so as I was going over some of your resume, you obtained your master's in experimental psychology.
Yep.
ISU, you applied there. You applied to many schools.
Mhm.
Why ISU? What drew you to that program ultimately?
Realistically, the fact
Yes.
that they accepted me.
You were like, they accepted me. That's it. That's
They accepted me.
they just
Again, I
said
had no
yes.
backup plan at all. So I applied to 10 schools,
Mm.
and several of them didn't get back to me. I did get a couple of interviews, but the interview for the school I wanted to go to the most was kind of interesting because the professor on the admissions committee reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I just want to have like a phone call with you to just see if our research interests align. Like, I know you didn't list me on your personal statement as someone you want to work with, but I think our interests really align together." And honestly, a lot of that was because I was doing it at the last second. I did not
Oh,
follow anything that Dr. Cohen told me, like prepare
you went
ahead of
rogue.
time. Yeah, like take your time on these things. I was like, I'm just doing it for the assignment. And then, of course, the assignment became reality. And I'm like, oh no, I started these applications in November and they're due in December.
Oh,
So so learn from my mistakes. Don't do that. Take your time. And so I didn't see this professor
Mm.
as an option. And so, you know, she luckily like actually read my materials and was interested. And so we had a good phone conversation and she's like, you know, if you get to move on to like final round, I'd like to work with you, that kind of thing, because I had discussed what my research interests were. They did align with hers, even though it was kind of in a different direction. Because at the time I was studying the psychology of deception, and she was studying like executive function and sleep. And I was like, okay, yeah, the whole through thread is that I want to study executive function. At the moment, I'm studying it through the lens of deception, but like I'm really most interested in like why do people do the thing that they do?
Oh, right.
And
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
like what are the mechanisms behind like this is what someone's going to do?
Hmm.
Um, and so moved on to the actual interview, the final interview for grad school. And then it was a Zoom interview. Sorry, it wasn't Zoom at the time. It was back when Skype was popular.
That's
You
right.
know, the thing that we didn't use in COVID. And so I did a Skype call. I dressed up all professionally, just to trick myself into, you know, taking it seriously and doing my best.
Yeah.
And I got nervous. I got
Mm.
so nervous because I was too shy because I didn't want to look like a failure to schedule a mock interview with the Career Center. Like I refused to do it. I
Mhm,
actively
mhm.
could not bring myself to be vulnerable that way. I was like, I will just power through it. wasn't a good idea because I was so nervous. Everything I said came out in the form of a question. So they'd be like, "Okay, what's the research that you're currently working on?" I'm like, "Well, it's a thing about deception." So so none of it sounded confident. It was a bad interview. And so that's why I didn't make it to final round. Luckily, the ISU interview was in person. And so they flew me out to Pocatello, Idaho. The first time I took a plane with propellers.
Oh
I
wow.
was
You took one of those.
like, what is this? It was in the middle of winter, right? So it's like snowing. I got caught in a snowstorm coming back. And so I stayed like an extra day with a grad student and that was good actually from California. So I was like, what is the transition like? And she's like, hey, it's fine. And it's quirky and there's not as much stuff to do, but realistically, you're a grad student, you're going to be doing that much. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And man, where was I going with this?
You were telling us about like the interview process of um oh gosh, it was before ISU. It was yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. That's right. So realistically, I went to ISU because they were the only one who accepted me, and I had no backup options for what to do after college.
Well, it worked out very well because you did end up going to ISU. And can you talk a little bit about your experience in grad school there?
Yeah. So grad school, I ended up in the program 10 years
Oh
and
wow.
was ABD. So I was almost done,
Hmm.
and there were some delays in my training.
Hmm.
Some of which was like my thesis got submitted because or my thesis had like final signatures like a week too late for the grad school deadline to qualify for comps. And so I had to wait a whole year. And then there were some other delays of just like my research wasn't working out. Like my thesis was an eye tracker study on deception, and it was the first time anyone had used this eye tracker, so I'm learning as I go,
Oh.
which is pretty par for the course for a first gen student. You just learn as you do it. And so I'm very used to just making things work with very little knowledge and a lot of Googling.
God, yeah, wow. So like really tool belt in hand and
Yeah,
just doing it
yeah.
without
And like I taught myself Python coding
wow.
so I could make the
Oh,
eye tracker work the way I wanted it to. And not the first time I learned how to code something for research projects, some of which weren't even my own. And yeah, so that's why it took me so long. There were some delays, and then um, I, you know, as I mentioned, kind of my interests had changed. I had went into graduate school fully intending to be a tenure track professor doing like a 50-50 research and teaching load because I liked teaching
mhm.
because that allowed me to interact with students, but I thought like the way to be a role model was to be a lab like mentor and mentor students in a lab because you spend a little bit more time with them rather than like maybe a semester or two
Right.
with students teaching a class. And I wanted that one-to-one interaction to really do mentorship and not just teaching. And the more I was in grad school, the more I was like, oof, that tenure track life isn't necessarily what I thought it would be. Like, there's a lot of this like publish and perish, um, uh, like publish or perish mentality, which I wasn't really a fan of as much as I love research.
Hmm.
I'd rather do it to satisfy curiosity rather than because my job depends on it. And again, the things that motivate me is mentoring students, and that wasn't necessarily what was going to happen as a tenure track professor until like I got tenure. Like it would be a part of it, but that wouldn't be necessarily something that would get me tenure, right? So that was kind of disillusioning to me. And then as I was ABD, I had proposed this project for with deception and interpersonal deception, and then COVID hits.
Oh.
And it's like year 6 for me, and COVID hits, everything sucks. And, there's the unknown of when we would ever be back in person. And so the options I had discussing with my committee chair and, some other folks, like, what are my options? Like, I have this proposal, but it's not feasible right now. And so the options were wait it out and see what happens when we can come back, and be able to do this kind of study, or change your proposal. And I had already proposed like quite a few things at this point and had finally tailored something. And then, of course, rats when the pandemic hits. And I'm like, oh my God, it took so long to get this idea approved. And the idea is entirely contingent on two people being in the same room at the same time, because there's a lot of research that says that, online deception is different because there's certain cues that are nonverbal or verbal that someone doesn't catch as much because there's just a different interaction. People aren't used to it. There's a lot of things you can hide, because, you're only like from shoulders to up, right? So there's a lot of things that people can hide behind a screen,
For sure.
and or are just less noticeable because the screen is blurry, or this that. And there's just something different about one-to-one interaction, as we've seen with classes that are online versus in person. There's just something different. And so, some people had said, like, just use Zoom. And I'm like, it's different technically. So we would technically be introducing a huge confound into something that it already has a small effect size. And so I, as a scientist, am uncomfortable with moving forward with that kind of project because I will get a null result and I don't feel like that's worth my time. and
Absolutely.
you know and so we started talking about different proposals, this, and then finally came up with something that could be an online project, because at this point everyone knows that I am, at this point I had become the program coordinator for SSS and McNair, and I had already verbalized, like, I don't intend to be a professor. If I am a professor, I'm just going to be doing teaching. I really just need this doctorate to move on. So at that point, everyone's kind of on board with, like, we just need to get you through. But it's a project I don't really care about for a career choice that I also am not moving towards anymore. So why am I working on this piece of paper? And you know, the more I thought about it, and at this point, I had been advising McNair scholars, some of which were alum, and talking to some of my colleagues in grad school, and I've been telling them the same advice that I had been given, right? Like, do what you are actually passionate about, not because every day is not going to feel like work. It's going to be work. The thing is, you have the motivation to continue doing things in hard times.
Right.
And as I'm saying this to students, I'm like, wait a second.
Did
Maybe I should follow my own
I was
advice.
gonna say,
And
did reality kind of hit you in the
reality did eventually hit. Again, I'm a
Okay,
slow learner
fair
as
enough,
much
fair
as I
enough.
do things quickly. Uh, and so I'm like, I should actually take my own advice. And, I had conversations with my chair, the grad school, the department chair, and I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. I can do this and I know I can, but
Mhm.
it's been 10 years. So right, fast forward 10 years.
Oh my
It's been
gosh.
10 years. I've been ABD for like 3 or 4 of these. And there's a reason. Like, I had gone to therapy to try to figure out, like, why I was getting panic attacks just thinking
Oh,
about writing, and I couldn't do it. And, like, every single time my counselor was like, are you sure this is something you want, or do you want something else? I'm like, no, 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 I want this. I want this. Like, I've already committed so much time to this. And so, that sunk cost fallacy was really the only reason I was staying. But the things that motivated me and got me up in the morning was trio and working with students and
that's
being
awesome.
able to do the thing that I actually wanted to do. And this whole time, lo and behold, it was advising.
Right in front of you,
It
like
was right
as
in
you were
front of me
doing.
the whole time.
So that's interesting because I wanted to really speak on that part of how did you, what were the paths that you take to get to Trio SSS as a program coordinator? And yeah, how did that happen for you?
So I was in year 6 of grad school and had been told I had run through all of my funding options.
Wow.
And they were like, to be fair to other students, we have to spread around the funding because it's a small rural school. There's not enough funding for all of you. And so I was like, understandable. I've had something for funding, even if it's only for a semester for 6 years. I totally understand. And so I
Totally.
was looking for jobs, and the options at the time that would allow me to continue my doctorate was night clerk at the library or trio program coordinator for SSS and McNair.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I know what McNair is because my roommate and my externship in Princeton was in McNair, and I know exactly that McNair is like the Mark program. It's just open to any major. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. I could do that. And so I applied for it and just like was on Tinder hooks the whole time, just like being like,
For
please let
sure.
me have this. Please let me have this. It's like the only thing that I really, really want. I don't want to be a night clerk. As much as I love libraries,
Yes.
like,
You're like, but not night clerk would
come
not be.
on. Like, I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
finally get like a bit of a jump start into something that I'm passionate about.
Absolutely.
And lo and behold, I did get the job, and there were some pretty good candidates in that pool as well.
Hmm.
And I ended up working with the person who was the next choice if I didn't accept. Also a graduate student, and also runs in the same circle as James Pascali.
Right
So
on.
yeah, they were in the same grad program, and that's another avenue to how I met him later in my
Wow.
trio career.
So you started off as a program coordinator, and
Hmm.
because of funding that you wanted for to pay for school, really.
Yep.
But it also gave you the opportunity to work with the trio population.
Hmm.
What is it about that job that you really fell in love with?
I fell in love with the people in the office, both the staff and the students, right? Like first gen students, like they like every student is always going to be unique and have their own ways of doing things and stuff. But there's something about the first gen experience where having someone who can tell you that you're not the only person who's felt out of place. And I've always been a fish out of water for all sorts of reasons. And being able to talk to another student about those experiences, like I had a 2 to 3 hour long conversation a couple months ago with a student who was verbalizing, like, I don't understand why I feel out of place. It doesn't feel like imposter syndrome, but there's just something where my family doesn't understand what I'm doing, and I don't understand what's happening in this and this and this. And I introduced him to the idea of, have you ever heard this concept of like the half generation, right? Like you have one foot in one culture and another foot in another culture, and that creates unique issues. And he's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't hear about it until the research project of my roommate. Uh, you
Yeah.
know, and that clarified a bunch of stuff for me. And being able to share these experiences that I learned as I made constant mistakes so that another student won't make the same ones, like that's what keeps me going, and why I particularly like wanted to work with the trio population, because it is first gen and low income students who may not have the same like avenues, but like the similarities of our experiences of being able to be like, yeah, isn't it crazy when your parents make you describe and translate medical terminology to
Right.
them as a
Right. Right.
5-year-old? Like, not a lot of people will have the same experience.
But this also allowed you an opportunity because you started as program coordinator
Yeah.
and then you became an interim advisor
Mhm.
and then full-on advisor. At this moment of your career, what did it mean to you?
It meant a lot to me. So it was basically a fork in the road for me.
Hmm.
When I became the interim advisor, that was essentially a stopgap for when the advisor I took over for basically had another opportunity to be able to work with a population of people that they are very passionate about and was a good opportunity for them. So, can't fault someone for that.
Right.
And so I had no intention of applying to be the full-time advisor because, it's a 12-month and 40 hours a week. And how was I going to fit in my doctorate
Hmm.
research if I had to be in lab for multiple hours? How was I going to pull that off? And so
Right.
I had discussions with my director about like, I don't know. And she's like, well, just think about it. It's the deadline isn't for a while, plus you're already doing the work, so it might not do any harm to apply for it if you want to. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay. And I sat and thought about it and I'm like, you're right. I'm already doing it. Why wouldn't I? And just to see what happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always a possibility that there's other better candidates and I don't even get a final round interview anyways. So the decision will be made for me. And so I
Hmm.
applied, do the interview, I do get the offer. And I'm sitting there contemplating it and the fork in the road for me is don't do a job that I'm passionate about that I have apparently been aiming for my entire life.
Hmm.
Because the things that drive me are I don't want a person to make the same mistakes I did that are easily avoidable if they just knew that they weren't alone. But finish my degree and I finish my doctorate and I get a piece of paper and I finally get my ego satisfied. But what are the career options there? Like it's an
Hmm.
unknown.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's an unknown where I would go, but I would finally have a doctorate degree. Or I give up on the doctorate degree because I'm not that passionate about it. It's just a piece of paper to me so I can stroke my ego. But I get to do a job that I always intended to do in the long run, anyways. But I get to do it now instead of later somewhere else with other unknowns.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I decided, my values have changed so much. I've been in school 10 years. And actually at this point I'd been in school for about 8 years in grad school.
Oh
I
wow.
didn't quit until maybe like another year or so because I
Hmm.
really was trying to have both. I was trying to have my cake and eat it too, and it didn't quite work out. But I decided I might as well do the thing I actually want to do. I
Hmm.
qualify for it. I clearly know what I'm doing and it's something I do love doing because I've been doing it for a couple of years at this point and I get to be an advisor and do more one-to-one mentorship and interaction, which is exactly what I want. And so I chose I chose that.
That's
And
awesome.
a year or two later, and I end up quitting graduate school and not finishing my dissertation because, again, like I came to the conclusion of it's just a piece of paper to me, and I as much as I want it, it's not something that gets me up in the morning.
I gotcha. Okay. So you work with great folks like Maurice Pittman, shout out to Maurice, Dr. James
Yeah.
Pascali, various folks. What would you say helped you grow into your current role?
Um, as an advisor, definitely Maurice. Like he has been an advisor for what like over a decade.
Hmm.
And so he knows what he's doing and he's great with people. And again, as someone who's like really growing into um I now understand how people work and I'm not a shy person anymore and you know, learning different ways of interacting with students. Like he's very big and extroverted and I'm more of the introverted kind of nerdy one, but both of us can talk forever. Like we approach things in different ways, but ultimately our goal is what is best for the student,
Hmm.
what is
Hmm.
going to get them to where they want to be, and like his passion and drive is so inspirational to me. Shout out to Maurice, all over the place. And so as an advisor, Maurice was an amazing mentor in the how do I how do I handle this case, right? Because I know the rules. The rules are written out.
Right.
What isn't written out is, okay, how do I address difficult conversations with this student when, the student wants to do one thing, but clearly their grades are showing that that might not be the right track for them. How do I approach this conversation? So having those like advisor consultation discussions with him early on were super helpful. And now I have those conversations with some of the new folks in our office of like, hey, all right, I know this is going to be uncomfortable, but here's a way to approach these. And you have other advisors who are able and willing to talk to you about these things. We do it together. Like even if you're the person on paper who is their advisor, you don't do these things alone necessarily, right?
Yeah.
And then in terms of professional development, of learning how to be a first gen professional, right? Because my first real job was the program coordinator for SSS and McNair. That's my first real job. And so I don't know how a workplace works. I thought I was going to be in higher education and being a professor and being in classrooms forever, which I kind of am, but in a different way.
Sure.
I still teach, but I'm not doing the 4-4, like that's my whole life kind of thing, right? So it keeps it interesting. I do love it. I do love it when things are interesting, but in terms of how to be a leader and how to interact with a lot of people working towards the same goal, but coming at it from different directions. My SSS and McNair director, Dr. Denise Tambasco, when I first started, an amazing mentor. Like she is unflappable, regardless of how many weird things I threw at her. And just such a great example of how to take a step back, think about things, and then move when you need to, like, and not overthink things, not take forever, but still make a good choice for everybody. And then also our executive director at the time for all the trio programs, Dr. Sari Byerly. Um, the woman is basically Leslie Knope.
A
Like
lot of
it
energy.
is amazing how she functions. Like I
Wow.
I just am always in awe of her. She's always working on like trio things, even though she's now at Weber State as the AVP of student experience there.
hmm
She's
hmm
unbeknownst to me, I'm doing a NACADA and Council of Opportunity and Education training for first gen advising. And guess who shows up as one of the facilitators? It's Dr. Byerly. I had no clue. I had no clue she was part of it. She's very passionate about trio and first gen students and providing access and opportunity to students who otherwise wouldn't have those opportunities provided towards them. And she is, I have no idea how she does as much as she does with the lack of sleep that she does.
Right.
And both of them are very strong inspirations to me, even though they go at things in completely different ways, right? Like one is very extroverted and the other is a lot more introverted, and being able to see how both of them can lead and make decisions and get everyone on the same page, even though they approach things very differently, is very, very cool. And so transitioning into from being a first gen student to a first gen professional, Dr. Tambasco really, really got me into that space. And they were both very good about figuring out what your skill sets are, what your passions are, and then making sure that you had a space at a table that you can grow those skills in. And so with their help, I ended up being on the presidential charter for first year experience as a member. And I also was on like committees for our state organization and maybe even our regional organization. Like I've been highly involved in all sorts of things once the doors opened to me, and they showed me how to get there. And they were the ones that connected me with other leaders in trio and making sure that, we're working together.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite memory working in trio?
I mean, every day is amazing.
I
Like
kind of figured you'd
the
answer that way, but yeah.
yeah, the ISU trio office is so very unique because we have all of the student serving programs and sometimes multiples of those grants. And almost everyone kind of knows each other. I've made very strong relationships with several people across different programs. Even if we don't work together side by side every single day, we at least know each other, have made friendships as a function of time. And like it's been great. What I say this all the time that, going through grad school, being in some like darker places because I'm seeing, colleagues who have come after me graduate on time and start careers and seeing like everyone move ahead of me, right? Like that in graduate school, I had some good colleagues, but they were like it wasn't necessarily enough to overcome some of the like hardships and obstructions and like random curveballs, right? Like going through difficult things, you need some support there. And with Trio, what I found was a home
Mm.
of people who thought like me, had experiences like me, made me feel less alone. And the ISU Trio office, even outside of the SSS and McNair programs that I actually worked with, several of those people that I now call my friends and not just colleagues, are some of the healthiest relationships I've ever had in life. Like they showed me different paths forward of how to be and how to interact and like really accepted me as who I am.
Mhm.
And those are the people that I want to be around. And to find a professional workplace that is like that is so rare and unique, and I love it. And to kind of dovetail into like a specific memory that really fits into this, I was helping out our UBMS program by kind of giving a presentation on some free time that I had. And then they invited me to do the same presentation about Filipino spaghetti because I was doing a presentation about culture and like how it affects language. And of course, I'm very food motivated, so I talked about food and like how terms for food in my country kind of evolved from all of the different nations that have interacted with the Philippines. And so I was talking about that and how like global a lot of your food is.
Mhm.
And they were like, "Hey, how about you? We're doing something called Nerd Night." And I was like, "I'm already in. What is it?" And they were like, so it's something that we do. So the UB director, Dr. Danielle Wiley, brought it from her grad school experience of doing Nerd Night, which is doing PowerPoint presentations, but for fun topics,
Mm.
right? Instead of things that you were forced to do. Now you do like a 5 minute presentation. It can be silly. It can be out of the blue. Just the whole point is to talk about something that you love. And so
Right.
they have their high school students practice public speaking this way. So they get to choose to do a presentation, make like a couple slides for it, and that's how they practice public speaking. And I'm stealing that idea for SSS and McNair programming. I've already talked to Dr. Pascali about it. We are both in. It's a great way to get students interested in public speaking, not because you force them to, but because they get to talk about something they like.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it was talking about food. So obviously. And so I had such a great time interacting with a program that I'm not even a part of, and just feeling so accepted by the students, by the staff, and talking about my favorite thing, which is food, and specifically Filipino ketchup, which is banana ketchup.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's an amazing history to banana ketchup because I did a full deep dive on this presentation. And and basically it was created in World War II because American soldiers wanted ketchup as a condiment, but they're in the Philippines, so there's no tomatoes. So a food chemist created ketchup from bananas. And so
Oh, wow.
basically it's a sweeter ketchup and it's just very much dyed red.
Ah,
So
interesting.
it's made from bananas. It's fantastic. have it on eggs. It's great times. And so being able to like bring a bottle of banana ketchup and be like, all right, everyone try this. This is better than Heinz ketchup. And so,
Wow.
and and then saying controversial things like that just so I can razz Danielle, who's 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 from Pennsylvania, just so I can make fun of her a little bit. And I'm gonna do it in a public space. Uh, but yeah,
That's awesome.
so that kind of like you're accepted even though you're not necessarily part of that program. You're still invited to do things and have fun with the students and just really be connected. It's
That's awesome.
awesome.
I love that. As you know, Reinalyn, TRIO programs are facing some quite unprecedented times, where TRIO has always enjoyed bipartisan support. There are those currently in the presidential administration that want to see TRIO gone for budgetary reasons. What are some action items that advocates, alumni, participants, and others can do to support TRIO?
For alumni and our supporters, advocacy is more important than ever. So programs like mine, SSS, have gotten funded, but that doesn't mean it's over, right? Congressional appropriations happen every year where they determine how much money all the federal programs get. Happens every year, regardless of whether or not it's been approved for the 5-year cycles. And so don't let up, let people know that Trio works and that they're so great for your community. And then as employees of Trio, we're not allowed to lobby for grants on grant money and on grant time. We can do it on our free time as private citizens. But even beyond that, your job professionally is showing how Trio works, not just to your students, but to your students are part of a community, right?
Hmm.
They have
Right,
parents, they have siblings, they have cousins.
right.
One person's life changing changes not just the life of that person, but their family and their community. And so we've had that. We're rural Idaho, right? We're southeast Idaho. There's not a lot going on here. And we have students who say, like, I am the first person in my community to go to college, and I did not know that was a possibility because no one in my community goes to college. And so their powerful stories of, I can do this because you can too. And several of our alumni are so happy to go back to their communities and say, this is possible, not just because of Trio, but because other people have done it. And so, having your alumni talk, but also you as a professional going around and being part of the community, right? These things don't get support without just the normal people.
Right.
like like even though it's all tied up in the government and what the government is doing, the government is a representation of regular people.
Hmm.
As
Absolutely.
naive as that sounds sometimes.
But I think you're right. You absolutely keep pushing and absolutely keep fighting. What advice do you have for TRIO staff listening to this podcast?
For Trio staff, keep pushing and keep fighting and recognize that you're not doing this alone. Our students don't finish education by themselves. They do it with your help. They do it with the help of their families and their friends and other people in their community. It's the same as staff members. We don't do it alone, even though we have our job duties. We have each other, even though we function in different states, different regions. It's all the same work.
That's awesome. What advice do you have for TRIO participants?
For trio participants, be willing. Be willing to try new things, get out of your comfort zone, be willing to talk to people about your problems because they might be able to tell you that you're not alone. And just be willing to be vulnerable in general, to attract the people you actually do want in your life. That's what I have discovered is is be vulnerable.
That's awesome. Are there any mentors you would like to recognize on this pod?
There's 1,000 people who helped me out. But some of the main ones, Lisa Donnie, who was my high school teacher, who called me out on thinking I wasn't smart enough. Dr. Cohen, my MARC director, who called me out on thinking I wasn't smart enough. Dr. Weissman Deflantes, who called me out on thinking I wasn't smart enough. And of course, Dr. Denise Tambasco, who was my director, who taught me how to be a first-gen professional. Dr. Shu, who has become a friend of mine, who was a professor in grad school, who taught me how to be a just a professional and a research professional that, but also continuing doing what you care about. And of course, Maurice, a real G.
Awesome. What is one word you would use to describe yourself?
Unabashed. I actually, interestingly enough, Lisa Donnie, my high school teacher, called me in a recommendation genuine to a fault. And I just don't know any other way how to be, and it's led me to all sorts of great people who, really vibe with me. I am just going to be myself and not be ashamed of it. And the people who like that are going to be amazing people, and the people who don't really care for it, probably not people you wanted to be in your life anyways.
So true. So true. What is something that you're currently reading, watching, or listening to?
Currently reading Welcome to Pawnee by Jim O'Hare. So he plays Jerry in Parks and Rec.
Oh,
and it's just
yeah.
the story of his journey being a small character actor, and then becoming a big star because of Parks and Rec, and how much he loves the Parks and Rec cast. And it's just kind of reaffirming of how working with great people can really just change your life.
Absolutely. Are you also listening to any pods or watching anything on YouTube or anything like that?
Oh, always.
All the time.
I love podcasts. The podcast I'm really obsessed with right now, or rather re-obsessed with, is called Off Book. Ooh. It's an improv musical podcast. So two comedians and a couple other comedian friends will just improvise an entire musical. It's amazing. And I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons nerd, so I'm currently catching up on Critical Role Season 3. So a bunch of nerdy voice actors play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's amazing.
That's awesome. Reinalyn Echon, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening to talk about you, your experiences, and all things trio and your own educational journey. We appreciate you having you on this podcast.
I appreciate you spending so much time with me.
You have broken the record officially as the longest podcast episode we have. So thank you. So we have a tradition on this podcast where we have the guests sign off. Do you care to do the honors?
Absolutely. This is Reinalyn Echon, graduate of California State University, Fullerton, and currently an advisor for Trio SSS at Idaho State University. Be unafraid to be yourself. It really works, and so does Trio.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a Trio program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Trio. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk Trio. We want to get your story to the public.
You just heard from our guest, Reinalyn Echon, advisor for the Trio Student Support Services Program at Idaho State University. Thank you, Reinalyn, for being on the podcast and for sharing your Trio journey. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Villalpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Napudi, Angelica Valdez, Rosario O'Reilly, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lamaster, Jeff Calden, and JDate Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and the Trio Store, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. Thank you all so much for your continued support of our podcast. You too can sponsor the Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of three ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on the podcast. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is at Let's Talk Trio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. Be sure to follow the Let's Talk Trio podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This episode was recorded Thursday, August 7th, 2025. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.